day you hired. This check will pay for your silence.
Don't you want us to check what I've just told you with a DNA sample?
The only thing I want is for you to disappear.
Head over heels.
The Motindum liquid electronic device reaches every corner, giving your loved ones a peaceful sleep. Together, we can fight to end malaria. Motindum, Kenya's #1 choice.
Botswana's diamond industry is a story of economic strength and exquisite beauty, where the treasures of the earth reflect the nation's enduring spirit.
On this show, we will focus on some of the ways in which agriculture can transform Africa's economies.
One of the areas that is critical in agriculture transformation is access to quality agricultural inputs.
What I think we should do is to be able to get a population that is well fed, that has good nutrition, and that you have good food security. Then from there you will be able to have a population that thinks even outside the box.
I am impressed by African Development Bank's vision on 4 different elements. They talk about targeted investments in specific value chains and agroecological zones to make this happen.
And people come in and they're like, oh, it works. I can have ice cream and I'm not in any discomfort. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
NTV, turning on your world.
Good morning. Welcome to AM Live on the day that follows the High Court judgment, a 3-judge bench judgment on the Finance Act 2023. What essentially, at the end of the day, is the result of said judgment. And I'm the captain this morning, but I have my Mwakenya, Julian's Amboko, in studio. I don't know if I should call him my fast pilot, because he was joking that he is ready to fly. And we also have Mheshimiwa Benjamin Langat, and he is Benjamin Kipkurui Langat. I should have said ambassador at the very start of that. He served as ambassador for Kenya to Namibia. He currently vice chairs. He's a vice chair of the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly. He chaired said committee between 2013 and 2017. He has been a member of the Budget Committee. So this is a man who understands his numbers. CPA, MBA, is it marketing chartered, member chartered? Okay, you want to confirm, Aside from that, we'll be joined by Abraham Rugo Muriu shortly via Zoom. So he'll be joining us virtually. And he is the country manager of the International Budget Partnership Kenya, part of the Okwa Uchumi initiative. So I'm also curious to hear what they made of the High Court judgment on the Finance Act 2023. We were to be joined by Honorable John Mbadi, who chairs PAC, the Public Accounts Committee. Unfortunately, a flu has gotten the better of him. I told him he can come, he can sign, and I will interpret, but that was on a light note. Regardless, we push forward. But first, again, as is our custom, we set the context with this report. The decision by a 3-judge bench at the High Court to issue stay orders on their ruling that declared the Housing Levy Fund unconstitutional has been met by stern criticism from the Law Society of Kenya. The ruling now means that government has been accorded more time until the 10th of January 2024 to regularize the legal framework around the housing levy. And as NTV's Sydney Chazima reports, the Law Society of Kenya has termed the High Court's ruling as a classic case of giving with one hand and taking with the other. Coincidentally, the title on our poster this morning was the court giveth and the court taketh away. Sydney Chazima, take it away.
And the taxes levied against persons in formal employment to the exclusion of all other than formal earners to support a national policy without a clear justification is discriminatory, irrational, and arbitrary in violation of 27(201)(b)(1) of the Constitution and therefore unconstitutional for those reasons.
This was Justice David Majanja's ruling on the constitutionality of the Housing Levy Fund. In his finding, Majanja argued that the move by the government to only deduct the housing levy from those in formal employment was discriminatory and hence had gone against the Constitution's dictates of equal and fair taxation. The respondents in the case against the housing levy then immediately sought stay orders to defer the implementation of this ruling, basing their arguments on the timing, legal implications, and the contracts that had been entered to by the government and contractors.
Allow me to apply for a stay or a conservatory order for 45 days. In those 45 days, I urge you to suspend the operation of those particular findings in the judgment and any decree that may flow therefrom.
This judgment places a Kenya Revenue Authority at a position where it will be subject to suits for illegally collected funds, and 2, will need a stay order to prevent refund claims which shall be made.
A declaration of unconstitutionality cannot benefit from a stay order.
The application that has been made before you is highly speculative.
The judges, after a brief recess, would again return to the court chambers at 3 o'clock, bearing good news for the government and KRA.
An order of stay be and is hereby issued, staying the effect of this judgment issued today, 28th November 2023, pending the filing of a formal application for conservatory stay and conservatory orders in the Court of Appeal, and these orders of stay shall remain in force until 10th of January 2024.
In line with this stay order, government now plots to use the 10th of January window to align the housing levy in law as pointed out by the court.
We will sit down, evaluate the judgment, and consider whether there is any other interim matter we can do in the House so as to ensure that the housing levy is not interfered with. You all know that it is in force. Money is collected, and in fact, as we have argued here, there are contracts out there which are being fulfilled using that money.
The Law Society of Kenya, through their president Eric Theuri, are now accusing the courts of aiding the government to get away with illegalities.
It almost feels as if the court is working in cahoot with the state. In a sense, the court has given with one hand and taken with the other. This is a radical departure from what other courts have done.
Bless you all.
Other than the ruling on the housing levy, other matters of the Finance Act of 2023 were also adjudicated. The 3-judge bench affirmed that the act underwent sufficient public participation, throwing out the petitioner's argument that public participation was only conducted for face value. The 3-judge bench also threw its weight behind Parliament, which had been accused of including 18 additional tax clauses to the Finance Act, which were not subjected to public participation, arguing that Parliament had the right to make such amendments.
It is now back to the drawing board for the government as far as its much popularized flagship project is concerned. The respondents will now seek an appeal over the unconstitutionality of the Housing Levy Fund at the Court of Appeal. Sydney Chazima, NTV at Milimani Law Courts in Nairobi.
President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua have promised to give the housing levy the requisite legal backing after a 3-judge bench dismissed the levy as unconstitutional. The 3-judge bench, comprising of Justice David Majanja, Lawrence Mugambi and Christine Meoli, also ruled that the collection of the housing levy only from salaried Kenyans is discriminatory. On their part, the Kenya Kwanza administration maintains the levy is an avenue for job creation for the youth. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, on the other hand, hailed the decision in the wake of what he termed a sigh of relief for many Kenyans following the increased cost of living. The court has since issued stay orders on the housing levy until January, as you heard in that report by Sydney Chazima, the 10th of 2024.
Wengine wanaleta economic stimulus, sio kufanyia wananchi madharau na dhuluma ya kuongeza ushuru. Tukajaribu kueleza, hawakusikia. Leo hii nashukuru mahakama kuu, the next court in line, our appeal court judges wamekubaliana na msimamo wa azimio la Umoja wa Kenya, wakatupilia mbali ushuru wa inaitwa housing tax.
People have gone to court to try to suspend the housing levy and to sabotage the housing program. Much as we respect the independence of the judiciary, I want to request our judges to exercise judicial discretion and not sabotage that program.
My plan is that by 2027, you will have 500,000 people working. That is the plan. I know the court have said we should go and readjust the law to make it aligned appropriately. That we are going to do, so that the 120,000 people can become 200,000 and can become 500,000 in the next 5 years.
All right, time now to take a look at how the dailies covered it. I expected it would be the big headline story of this morning. Let's begin with the Daily Nation. Blocked is how they put it. The government will move fast to align the law with court decision, says Ruto. The courts have this week dealt President William Ruto heavy blows by upending 3 key pillars of his Kenya Kwanza administration: housing, health and privatization. Judges yesterday declared the housing levy unconstitutional, but, and this is a big but, give the state until January the 10th to appeal the decision. On Monday, the High Court suspended 3 new health laws, as well as the planned sale of the Mombasa and Lamu ports. Okay, and I think these are highlighted in bullet points 1, 2, and 3. Let's see. This is how the Daily Nation did it. Let's take a look at my favorite always, Taifa Leo. You can always expect quite something with Taifa Leo. And this is how they put it. They have not let us down. Ruto akatwa kucha. Mahakama yataja kodi ya nyumba ni haramu katika hatua iliyopiga serikali breki ya kutoza ushuru kila mahali. A couple of bullet points here. Let us see what it says. Moja, majaji wa mahakama ya rufaa wazima mamlaka ya ushuru nchini KRA kuongeza maradufu kodi ya pombe, maji ya chupa na bidhaa za urembo. Majaji waagiza KRA ikome mara moja kupokea kodi ya nyumba kutoka kwa wafanyikazi na waajiri. Kesi nyingine ni kupinga nyongeza ya ada za kuwarejesha watoto nchini wanapozaliwa ng'ambo. Madereva kufanyiwa mtihani upya na mamlaka ya kitaifa cha uchukuzi NTSA. Ulipiaji ada mpya ya mashamba and mahakama ya zima ubinafsishaji wa bandari za Mombasa na Lamu kwa muda. So the privatization, Okay, so this is how, essentially how the Taifa Leo put it. Ruto akatwa kucha. Let's see what is on the Business Daily. Julians, I know this one holds a special place in your heart. High Court spared 3.2 million Kenyans, I beg your pardon, from housing levy. High Court fines, let me just make this larger. There we go. High Court finds levy illegal as it exempts 15.9 million. Judges suspend decision until January the 10th to allow appeal. More than 3.2 million Kenyans in formal employment have been spared from paying the contentious housing levy that the government introduced in July after the High Court yesterday ruled that it was unconstitutional. A 3-judge bench found the levy was illegal as it subjects Kenyans in the formal employment to the tax while leaving out more than 15.9 million others in the informal sector from contributing to the fund. However, Kenyans should not celebrate yet after Justices David Majanja, Christine Meoli and Lawrence Mugambi suspended their decision until January the 10th to allow the government to appeal. And here they have gone with an image of the Housing Principal Secretary Charles Hinga, who appearing before MPs in the past to respond to audit queries. And see, chin in hand, he looks like he's in deep thought. Okay, this is how the Business Daily covered it. Let's take a look at how the rest of the dailies did it. Workers' tax jubilation is how the Standard puts it. Landmark case, High Court said the 2.75% being deducted as housing levy is unconstitutional, a move that brought relief to many employees. But respite was short-lived after the judges suspended the decision. 18 billion shillings is the amount Kerry said it had already collected from salaried employees. 45 days period, the judgment has been suspended as requested by government. 2.75% percentage of a worker's gross pay that was being deducted as housing levy. Kupet Secretary General quoted as saying, today's ruling has vindicated workers, organizations which stood in unison, I beg your pardon, against the housing levy. The court has met the genuine aspiration of Kenyans. LSK President Eric Theory, the impugned law is uncertain as to the beneficiaries of the said scheme, which goes against principle of taxation that requires the language of a tax law to be clear. And a quote of Justice David Majanja, who was presiding over yesterday's proceedings, over the proceedings generally. In the absence of rational explanation, we can only conclude that the respondent went for the easy part of taxing employees in formal employment. So that is how they put it. Let us see the Star. House tax illegal, but pay for now, judges. Provision upon which the levy was anchored were found to have Provisions upon which the levy was anchored were found to have no legal basis. Quashing of the levy brought temporary relief to salaried workers. And the People Daily. Ruto housing tax broke law. Court. Judges fault Finance Act for introducing Affordable Homes Fund without legal backing in landmark ruling. State asks for time to challenge judgment in Court of Appeal. And court says ruling will take effect after 45 days. An image here of the three judges. They're quoted as saying the levy violates the principles of taxation and as contained in the Finance Act 2023 is discriminatory and unfair for making a distinction between formal and informal sectors, thus creating unequal and inequitable principles, and it is unconstitutional. A couple of things they've highlighted as well on the front page here. One, a left hand takes what right hand has given. Court offers relief to workers and their employers, but says judgment will come in force from January. So near yet so far. Petitioners had asked court to order the government to refund tax workers have already paid, but that was not to be. Number three, EPRA boss off the hook. I know a couple of guys were looking to hear how this would go. The regulator had been accused of contempt of court but found innocent. And reprieve for government. Many of the prayers by Azimio, LSK activists and Senator Umtata were thrown out. Okay, so Julian Zamboko, as a former business editor, is it business editor emeritus for the Nation Media Group, Business and Tech. Which headline do you think captured the essence of the judgment the best?
First of all, Olive, I would like to make a correction. If you look at the headline of the Star, it looks like there was a mix-up because the housing levy is at 1.5%, yet the headline there indicates 2.75. That is for the Standard, the Standard.
Standard, yes.
The Standard newspaper. And I think having said it's important we just clarify to our audience that the 2.75 is envisioned for the SHIF, yes. And the housing levy is at 1.5%.
Okay.
So having said that,
SHIF, is the social health insurance fund.
Correct. Which also has been slapped with stay orders just this week. So which headline captured it the best? I think I would say the Business Daily. I might be accused of being biased, but I think the number of Kenyans who are afflicted by this needs to be captured adequately. Though I should say we run the risk of what we did in the Finance Bill and Finance Act, and that is to pigeonhole a very consequential judgment through the lens of the housing levy. There were many issues which were captured in that judgment, which I think need to be understood adequately by Kenyans. More importantly, the question of public participation, because that is where citizen participation comes in the budget cycle. And in the PFM architecture, it's a very integral part. And Justice Christine Meoli pronounced herself quite clearly on the aspects of public participation. So even as we kick into the budget cycle for FY 24-25, it's important that Kenyans appreciate that the courts ruled that public participation was adequately conducted. And there is no prescription in law that if you send your feedback, then it must be incorporated into the law. So I think that's something which we really need to give emphasis because of the consequences it has for public participation.
Interesting. Yes. Curious what Abraham will have to say on that, because as Okwo Chumi, they made several submissions before the committee, Finance and National Planning. I think you guys are taking submissions. We are near the airport somewhere. Oh, but first, your thoughts on yesterday's judgment on the Finance Act 2023.
Yeah, I think as Julian said, first of all, there were so many prayers that had been sought about the finance bill. And the one which is making the headlines, which is the housing levy, is one of them. But it is also good to indicate that there was a question on whether public participation was done and whether it was enough. And I'm very happy that the ruling said that the public participation was adequate. So to that extent, I think the National Assembly did the job well. Number two, it was also said that the fact that you have given your submission, you have appeared before the committee, does not necessarily mean that whatever you have said should be taken on board to the law that is that will be enacted. And therefore, to that extent, I think Parliament was exonerated to that extent. In terms of what happened yesterday, in terms of the housing levy, I think I want to say, because I was part of the people who dealt with the matter at the committee level, I want to say this was the most contentious issue.
The housing levy now?
The housing levy. Every person who appeared before us, everyone had an issue with the housing levy. And therefore, that is why at the beginning, the proposal was 3%, of course, to be capped at 2,500 between the employer and the employee. And after listening to the Kenyans at that level, we were able to reduce to 1.5%.
But they made it uncapped.
But then, because of the issues that were there, we made it open-ended. But when you look at the 1.5, even for 100,000, you still have maybe 1,500, which is still, we thought it was affordable. But having said that, the court said yesterday that it is unconstitutional. And I want to say, the way our system is structured is that Parliament does the job, it's its job. Judiciary, because it is also envisioned that Parliament might do, do more than it's supposed to do. So there is the courts to interpret the Constitution, and of course there is the executive to implement. So I think what the courts did was they did their job, Parliament did their job, but I want to say, as the President said, it is still it's still a process. That is why also, if you look at the structure of courts, we have the Magistrates Court, we have the High Court, we have the Court of Appeal, we have the Supreme Court. Because you don't assume the Magistrate Courts will do the right thing 100% or High Court. So that's why there's that appeal process, and therefore that is the first stage. We are hoping. I think I see myself. There's going to be an appeal process even up to the Supreme Court.
Up to the Supreme Court, wow. Okay, so allow me to take a look at what else is contained in the dailies, and then we'll come back round to the issue of the Finance Act. I can hear my director, Jackie Alosi, and she's like, Abraham, can you hear me? So I'm guessing we have a picture of him on video. Oh, there he is. But Abraham, if you can hear me, I think my director is struggling to hear you. Let's see. Let's test it out. What did you make, just in general, before we get into the nitty-gritties of the judgment given yesterday on the Finance Act 2023?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. And sorry I couldn't come to studio in person. I think for me it was a really an aha moment, a moment of just reminding myself that we have a constitutional framework, we have institutions that basically we can go to when we are not when we have an issue that concerns us. I think that was very, very, very helpful, because having had all the conversations, and we can go in a bit detail later on, that we had around the Finance Act and specifically the housing tax levy, because it still doesn't have a specific name. For many workers, it's just a deduction and a compulsory one. So for me, that was an aha moment that yes, we have actually a framework that we actually can have a recourse, because for public participation, then that is very, very critical. But secondly, it's also the fact that that judgment did not just focus on the housing levy. It looked at the entirety of the Finance Act. It found quite a number of things constitutional. It raised a number of questions about the relationship of institutions, Senate and National Assembly. So for me, really, it was really, really a happy moment, partly because I also quite did not think, and still do not think, that the housing idea and deduction actually had been thought through in terms of its implications, in terms of its use. Yeah, so for now, aha moment for me, and I'm really happy that we have structures and institutions that we can actually recourse to in the event we need a matter resolved. Thanks.
All right, thank you for that. I know one of the issues, I think the first one they addressed was whether this was a money bill.
Yes.
And then there was the issue of the role of Senate, if they came in at any point, because
the concurrence between the speakers, the Senate and the National Assembly.
Okay. So utatusaidia na hiyo. Julian's had his earphones on, so I know he got pretty much everything across the board. But first, let's take a look at what else is highlighted on the front pages of the dailies. Sharing the front page here, Raila hints, and this is the Daily Nation, Raila hints at a return of protests as Azimio leader rallies his supporters to be ready for street demos, even as opposition coalition brings forward its parliamentary group meeting today. Notably, one of the things they were unable to agree on was the question of the housing levy. That is the National Dialogue Committee making reference to here. KNTC bosses face detectives over edible oil scandal. I know Rosaline Obala was chasing this story yesterday. Let us see. This is page 8. Is it page 8? Because page 8 I'm meeting. Oh, here we go. Yes, by Rosaline Obala and Collins Omulo. The Directorate of, I'm just going to look at the first few paragraphs. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations. Should I flip there? Let me flip. Page 8. Let us see, 7, 8. There we go. And the Directorate of let's see, Gillian's, that's better, I hope?
Yes.
All right, so the Directorate of Criminal Investigations is piecing together a case that could reveal the defrauding of taxpayers in an edible oils import scandal. Though the DCI is yet to give an official statement on the matter, the Kenya National Trading Corporation bosses, including MD Pamela Mutua, are said to have been held for questioning on Monday. The DCI is investigating reports of irregular KNTC import tenders for edible oils valued at 16.5 billion shillings and other food items, including rice and maize. The deal saw some companies paid for substandard duty-free imports. The Senate has also taken an interest in the issue, demanding to know if the government imported 12,500 tons of edible oil, as reported by KNTC, after a House committee failed to locate the consignment that was intended to tame the rising cost of basic commodities. And there's a quote here: "We want to know how and why KNTC settled on the company's award of the tender and the board resolutions by the National Treasury and the Kenya Revenue Authority to import the commodities duty-free." So I don't want to give away too much of the story, but there's a figure highlighted further down here, and 163,827 the tons of sugar imported from non-COMESA countries between January and September, according to CS Mithika Lituri. E-paper donation.africa is where you can find the rest of that story. I'm just going to flip back to page 5. Did I flip over too far? Let's see. Page 5. This should be page 5. Yes, Mombasa and Lamu ports sale suspended. This one is by Maureen Ongala. The High Court has suspended the government's plan. Zoom in. To privatize the ports of Mombasa and Lamu after residents of the region filed a petition claiming the sale was a ploy to take over the management and assets of Kenya Ports Authority. Justice Chacha Mwita of the Milimani High Court in Nairobi issued the conservatory orders on Monday and ordered the government to respond within 3 days for directions to be issued on December the 6th. The Taireni Association of Mijikenda filed a petition at the High Court seeking conservatory orders against the government's plan to privatize berth 11 to 14 at Container Terminal 1 at Port of Mombasa and berths 1 to 3 at Lamu Port. The same association has sought to stop the privatization of Container Terminal 2 at the Mombasa Port when a similar plan was mooted in 2019. When the president, where was it the president addressed the issue of Mombasa? Was it at a UDA meeting? And I think he said it's what? It's the...
You said there will be no privatization.
No privatization. There's a now, he defined it differently. Is it the operations that were going to be managed privately or what?
I remember there was a mention of concessions in terms of the management, but it was very explicit that there will be no privatization. And if you look at even the schedule that came out from the National Treasury about the 11 entities which will be privatized, one of the things that stood out for many Kenyans was that Kenya Ports Authority, never mind it was in the initial IMF list of SOEs which required restructuring, was not on the list. So I think at least the executive has come out very clear on that.
On that, yeah.
Yeah,
so concession.
Yes.
All right, let's take a look at what else is contained on the front page of the Business Daily. Apart from Charles Hinga looking deep in thought, we have sharing the front page, Morgan Stanley blocks Kenyan firms from global index. Let us see. Charles Mwaniki, the Morgan Stanley Capital International, an international trading indices firm, has barred new Kenyan companies from joining its global stock market platform, citing dollar shortages and financial turbulence facing Kenya in the latest blow to local firms. Seeking to sell shares to foreign investors, the American investment advisory firm, whose analysis influences major decisions by the global investment community looking at investing in African frontier markets, has also extended its August 2022 decision to stop carrying out periodic reviews of the dollar-denominated MSCI Kenya index, a decision that will also affect Bangladesh, Egypt, and Nigeria. So, Julius, in English now, what does this essentially mean?
Think about the MSCI index as a platform that gives you visibility. And that visibility then puts you on the radar of global investors. Why they come into this market is because they look at such indices and take decisions on them. Now, the moment it is barring participation by your counters, you fall off that radar. And that is why We have been talking about the market is depressed. There is no appetite coming from global investors because of such moves. And they've given their reasons around the dollar shortage, the challenges we are facing in terms of the domestic market. And that, as the article indicates, it doesn't only affect Kenya. Nigeria, which has serious foreign exchange challenges currently. Egypt, I think the Egyptian pound, I should clarify, has been devalued significantly over the last 12 months. So it tells you this is what we call a frontier markets headache, not specific to Kenya. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Frontier markets headache. Any thoughts on this, Mheshimiwa?
I think the challenges of shortages of dollar is not a Kenyan problem. It's a kind of international problem. I remember recently we had sold some tea to Pakistan. Yeah? There was a challenge in terms of getting the payments. In fact, it stayed for almost 3 months, because Pakistan could not access the dollars to be able to pay Kenya. So in terms of that challenge, I can say it is an international challenge that is affecting both Africa, Asia, and other countries, so that we cannot see Kenya as the only affected country. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Abraham, I know you don't have a business daily is laid out in front of you. I don't know whether you got the gist of the story.
Yes, I did. I did get the gist of the story yesterday.
Okay.
I think, yeah. My concern is that this also comes after quite a number of discussions and reports that have been put out there. First of all, the statement that basically put us in a debt distress kind of situation. Again, then the downgrading of our ability to pay, and then this now. And the challenges at NSC, have been compounding, because also with the counters not performing, and then you have now a situation where basically, investors are very hesitant to put in money. It's also a challenge about the kind of business environment that is obtaining in Kenya, and for me that's a bigger concern, because then it means that increasingly people are not attracted to it. They are worried about our fiscal space. They are worried about our monetary policy. And that for me is the confidence that I think we needs to be addressed, almost immediately. And when we are in this hole for very different reasons, so we cannot compare ourselves to Egypt. We cannot compare ourselves to Nigeria, however much we want. I mean, those are, in the sense of the size of their economies, quite significant. But on the other hand, again, it is also to say that the fact that we are not alone means that then there's a space in which we can be able, particularly especially with the exports market, because that's where we can leverage quite a bit in terms of how much we are able to bring in. So it's a confidence question, and my concern is, as I've said, is the fact that this is coming on the tail of other downgradings, other decisions that have been made, and even just our own concerns, even with our own reports like the ones from FKE about how businesses are thinking. That's the Federation of Kenyan Employers. Businesses are considering downsizing because of the state of doing business in Kenya. So we need to see it from a broader perspective and concern, because that has an implication, because the NSC performance also is a factor of how well the companies that are listed there are actually performing in their businesses, and therefore reporting profits and advancing. Thank you.
All right. I'm curious, Julians, that FKE report, 70,000 jobs, was it, lost over the course of the last year?
Yes.
Right? And they talked about 40% of their members saying they will
downsize further.
They'll downsize further. Yes. What in your view, what accounts for that?
So, FKE told us that between October 2022 and November 2023, 70,000 jobs have been lost, we need to clarify, in the formal private sector, which tells you that we don't even yet have perspective of what's happening in the informal side of the private sector, which has the bulk of Kenyans generating their income from there. And they cited the constraints they are facing. One is that over the last 12 months, you have revised NSSF to align it to the NSSF Act of 2013, and therefore you have bumped up deductions. And what that means is because you match, the employer matches what the employee is contributing, and in this case it is 6% of your pensionable income, employers have taken a harder hit as well. Here you come with the housing levy, which took effect July, and of course there was an issue in court, but backdated. So the employer again matches. Then now we're talking about the NHIF, now SHIF, which will also be matched at a higher level. And therefore, from an employer's standpoint, my burden is becoming extremely larger, and yet the operating environment is so constraining, so my turnover, my profitability is potentially going lower. So what do I do in that case? Since I cannot deal with my top line, which is my turnover or revenue, let me deal with my cost base. And what do I do with my cost base? I begin redundancies and restructuring. So I reduce my overheads in terms of my wage bill. And that is how now Kenyans are losing jobs in the tens of thousands in a space of 12 months. And I did the math, and that's about 190 Kenyans being laid off every single day. That's a huge number.
I know there's a story which was, I don't know, I think it was in the Business Daily yesterday, to do with EPZ, something in Mombasa, and some, was it 5,000?
Yes.
People are projected to lose their jobs in that case as well. But that was attributed to, I think, a buyout or something. I can check, because, you know, if you visit epaper.nation.africa, you can find even Gazeti za juzi na jana na Mheshimiwa. So your thoughts on that?
I want to disagree with Julian a bit in terms of really the causes of the loss of jobs, if any. First of all, the social health insurance levy has not even taken effect. I think it's going to take effect maybe from January. So definitely that one could not have been the cause of that unemployment. Number two, I think the housing levy also came in just like 4 or 5 months ago. The studies were 1 year ago. I think what we need to look at is the last 1 year, what has been happening. For example, the cost of fuel has been actually going up. Number two, we have seen our shilling has been depreciating at a very alarming rate. In fact, if you look at for the last 6 months, it has decreased almost 40%. What does that mean? It means that those companies who are importing raw materials, definitely their cost alone on account of depreciating Kenyan shilling is increasing by 40%. And number two, those companies, we have very few companies who are exporting. Actually, if you check in this country, and that's where we need to work on, is the export side of our economy. Because if you look at, we only export the raw materials, which is the tea, the coffee, avocados, and which is very, very small in terms of the foreign exchange that we really need. So I think the greatest challenge that we have as a country is the shilling, which is depreciating, which is causing the high cost of fuel, raw materials, and so forth, which has been actually happening across the last one year. And I think that accounts for that report which said some jobs have been lost. But for the effects of what you are trying to do now, the housing levy, the social insurance fund, I think something which will come, we will begin to see going forward maybe next year. Yeah.
All right, so we need to take a break, but we'll come back with Julian's and Abraham's take, because my question is, let's say the housing levy has contributed in part, the increased deductions have contributed to the job losses, then doesn't that defeat the purpose? Because like the housing levy, we've been told, was intended to create jobs, but it's having the opposite effect in the formal. Julian's has been very clear, formal private sector, and they may argue I'm being simplistic, but I am asking from the point of view of Wanjiku on the other side of this break.
we talk like civilized people?
If you don't believe me, there's nothing to discuss.
To start with, Bridget, leave that suitcase alone. Don't tell me the investigator you hired to find my Aunt Serena's daughter is named Rotundo. Yes. Yes, he's Alejandro Rotundo. He's the same person that day you hired. This check will pay for your silence.
Don't you want us to check what I've just told you with a DNA sample?
The only thing I want is for you to disappear. Head over heels.
The Motindum liquid electronic device reaches every corner, giving your loved ones a peaceful sleep. Together, we can fight to end malaria. Motindum, Kenya's #1 choice.
The AA journey started like a dream 104 years ago. With the right leadership, the right business model, the right standards and international affiliation with FIA, AA has grown to support you with various mobility products and services. And it's growing. Now, you need sunglasses because the future of AA Kenya is too bright.
AA Kenya, inspiring mobility.
On my dark marks, I've tried everything from A to Z, even vitamin C, but hardly any results. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one, with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Hii krisi GoTV Stream iko mkononi, mechi yako na sports action yote, na watoije hata wao hawajawachwa nyuma. Wacha enjoyment izidi hii holiday na GoTV. GoTV Stream available from 1st December for all active customers.
At Stanbic Kenya, we believe in your financial potential, and we are here to help you reach new heights. Enjoy an attractive interest rate of up to 14% per annum on your savings. Make the most of this exclusive offer today and let your money thrive. For more details, call us today or visit a branch near you. Stanbic Bank.
The Sport Essence is a light serum, quickly absorbed to clear dark marks. Rich moisturizing cream is a gel cream type that deeply hydrates and prevents dark marks. I highly recommend Melano CC for healthy and happy skin. Roto.
Welcome back to AM Live, and I am the captain on this flight. I have a first officer called Julian Zaboko, who is also in a studio with me. He's my Mwakenya. I'm always like, every time I host this show and I can't understand something, I'm like, Julian! Please explain. So we have Julian Zaboko in studio. We also have Ambassador Benjamin Langat, who is Vice Chair of the Finance and National Planning Committee, served as Chair of the Finance and Plan, same committee between 2013 and 2017. He has served as Ambassador for Kenya to Namibia and also served as a member in the Budget Committee. We also have with us, but joining us virtually, Dr. Abraham Rugo Muriu, and he is the Country Manager, International Budget Partnership, Kenya. Good to have all three of them in studio. So I just want to quickly wrap up the dailies, looking at the ticker of the Business Daily. Here we have Treasury overdraft breaches 85 billion shillings. And the details captured underneath that are emergency loans the Treasury has tapped from the Central Bank of Kenya hit a record high of 85.12 billion shillings on November the 10th before falling a week later to 81.01 billion shillings. Huawei fails to table tax waiver papers. Huawei Technologies is now facing sanctions, including being barred from doing business after it failed for the third time to provide papers on 1.92 billion shilling tax waiver. And eGuards sales dip 99% amid reforms. The sales revenue for coffee grower eGuards dipped more than 99% in the 6 months to September. And then the other one I wanted to quickly look at, Star. At the bottom, this is, here it says, Parliamentary Think Tank paints gloomy verdict of economic outlook. Page 8. We quickly scroll down to there. Sorry, let me just stop by the editorial cartoon. They're always entertaining to look at. Who is this who's carrying it on their back? Is that us? Salaried employees? Julians, what do you make of that?
Oh yes, it's the housing levy.
No, but is it us employees? I'm guessing that's meant to...
That's a payslip Kenyans, I think.
Ah, okay. Okay, on to page 8 of the Star. Am I there? Okay, so there's a story here on privatization. Let me just quickly read the headline. Raila selling KPC will raise fuel prices, says the farm is strategic to the country's economy. It is what Kenya Pipeline Company was one of the 11, right?
Correct.
Including KICC. And for many people who are like, that is essentially the equivalent of a national monument. But that is a discussion for another day. Here we go. Parliamentary think tank paints gloomy picture of country's economy outlook. Economic, I'm guessing. The National Treasury has projected the economy to grow at 5% in 2023, up from 4.8% in 2022. Julius, I remember you shared this report in full on the group. There's a quote here: going forward, inflation could remain high and rise even further. If shocks occur, this will continue to weigh heavily on the cost of living, especially for the lower income brackets. I haven't looked at your Twitter, and I'm remiss for not having done that.
Yes.
But what stood out for you in this report?
I think, first of all, I must commend the Parliamentary Budget Office. I think they do a stellar job as far as analysis and forecasting is concerned. And to the best of their capabilities, they really try to ensure that the legislative arm of the government is well informed when it comes to fiscal affairs. The report they put out was speaking to the macro fiscal environment we're operating in, the risks that are associated. One is that the journey on fiscal consolidation seems to have been lost. For the sake of our audience, fiscal consolidation is where the government rationalizes its expenditure. So here we are as Kenyans being told to tighten our belts, but we don't see the state tightening its belt. And what does that mean? Then the shortfall between your revenues and expenses keeps on being in the hundreds of billions. People keep asking how we got into this debt hole we are in. That's precisely how we got into this space. So that was really my key take home from it. It highlighted other things, the depreciating shilling, inflation being a huge risk going forward, and whether it will still remain within the prescribed Central Bank of Kenya band, which is 5% plus or minus 2.5 as the floor and the ceiling. So some of those take homes from it. Yeah.
I spy with my little eye, Abraham was nodding. When you were speaking. Abraham, I know there's a conference I was MC for on debt for Okwo Uchumi. You were moderating a panel. On that panel was, what's his name, the guy who's in charge of the Budget Parliamentary Office. I mean, what is it, PBO? Parliamentary Budget Office. I forget his name, but I don't know whether you've had a chance to look. Sorry, Masinde. Yes. So I don't know whether you've had a chance to look at this report, and if you have, what in it stood out for you?
So I haven't read the report, but I have been following very closely the reports they've done before, and I just listening to Julian's. And I wanted to first of all agree with Julian's commenting that the work they have been doing has been quite stellar. But there's something that they have been telling us, and we also spoke about it in that conference that I think is significant, is the fact that unless we rein in our expenditures have continued to grow. And that has been fueled by debt, because our incomes are growing. As a nation, I think it is important to underscore the fact that our revenues have been growing. And our previous PBO report did raise the concern that unless that deficit, you will recall a time when just last year, just before the elections, when they actually had, through the Budget Appropriations Committee, pushed for the limiting of the deficit to 400 billion. That is basically what they were talking about. They ran a model, an independent model, that basically then it's what they use to inform Parliament. And yes, at the moment, with the kind of debt situation that you find yourself, because the interesting thing, and PBO highlighted this in a previous report, is that because for us to be able to meet our debt obligations, I mean our financing obligations for our budget, we've actually been borrowing in the last 2-3 years. We've been borrowing more locally at very high interest rates, and they pointed that is perhaps our biggest risk. Because then now you are having to pay at very high interest rates. If you just saw the coupon that even Central Bank of Kenya, I think, published, must have been last week or thereabout, at 17%. And basically those are the kind of indicators that start telling you that then you have a challenge, because then you're not able to pay that kind of an amount. But let me connect that, if you permit me, with something that Mheshimiwa Benjamin there had tried to raise. Of course, I would ask him what they are doing about all these issues. But before that, is also to note that government has been a player and a critical player in the kind of situation we find ourselves, because right now, getting a loan from a bank, as an individual citizen or as a private corporation, is very difficult, because government already has crowded out. Even when you look before the estimates were revised, there was going to be a borrowing of almost 600 billion from the about 400 billion from the domestic market, which then means it crowds out. And these are the things that the PBO basically has been raising. I'll be looking at the report in the course of today. But basically, those are some of the critical things that, if you don't look at the interest rate, if you don't look at the state of the inflation, if we don't look at, how we rationalize our spending, then we find ourselves in a very tight spot. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Abraham. Mhesh, I don't know that you've had a chance to look at it?
Yes. Let me say, I think the Parliamentary Budget Office, I must say, is doing a very good job, because they have been advising us on the economic matters. I think their observations are based on the fact that from where we are, because everyone from where we are, you could see, for example, our shilling is very weak. In the next 6 months, even if it becomes stronger, to what extent? Number two is the cost of fuel, which is the main cost of production, is also very high. Even if it reduces in the next 6 months, to what extent? I don't think it will reduce that much. But having said that, I think as a country, maybe we need to look at the constitution that we adopted as a country, because to me, I think the greatest challenge we have as a country is we adopted a very, very expensive constitution in terms of running the country. So that today, if you were to work out the revenues of the country in terms of the equation, what should go to counties, you add to what should be the salaries, which it's a must to be done. Then you add to then you add those ones, cost of interest and repayments. If you have those three, which are you must do it, the three of them, then you remain with almost zero. So that for you to be able to, do anything extra, mostly you resort to borrowing both locally or internationally. And I want to agree also that the local borrowing has become very expensive. In fact, if you look at the last treasury bond rate, if you look at it, it's actually almost 17.9, which is almost 18%. Yeah,
and that's an infrastructure bond, which is tax-free.
Yeah, so it means that 18%. It means for any bank to be able to lend to individuals and private sector, then it has to be 18% plus. Because they cannot lend to individuals when they can lend to government at 18%. So it has to be 18% plus, maybe 5-6%. So I agree that maybe going forward, and I think that's what we are discussing with the Treasury, that we should reduce the borrowing locally, so that we don't increase the cost of borrowing to private sector.
But how do you reduce?
Allow me to challenge Mheshimiwa here with us. Budget proposals come from the National Treasury. They go to the National Assembly. And the reason why they go to the National Assembly is that there should be a checks and balance system. I don't understand why the National Assembly cannot send back these proposals and tell the Treasury, which is the executive side of government, that these numbers do not make sense. We need to rationalize the planned expenditure for the next financial year based on the realities we are living in. And that is why we have a committee such as the one where he's vice chair. We have had a scenario whereby proposals come from the Treasury and they easily sail through. If you look, for example, at FY 23-24, when we had the budget tabled in June, the projected fiscal deficit was about 719 billion shillings. Supplementary budget one is here and recently assented to by the president. We are edging close to 900 billion again in deficit. So what is the role of the legislature in public finance if proposals come from Treasury and they just sail through as they are? They should be bold enough to send this back to the Treasury and tell them going back to the drawing board. All right, before I invite you to respond to Julian's question, Abraham, again, I saw you nodding. Would you like to further buttress Julian's point?
Yeah, I want to agree with Julian's and say that this is a matter that I have raised in person with the various committees of Parliament, and I keep giving example of that 400 billion deficit last year because the Budget Appropriation Committee actually had tabled that report. It was on the budget policy statement. So this is a document that is tabled long before the actual budget is prepared. And at what point things changed and the 400 billion again was not going to be approved. And in fact, then we went into a conversation about raising the debt ceiling to 10 trillion. That time we were just edging very close. We were at 8.6 and we were edging very close to 9 trillion. You remember we had raised the ceiling to 9 trillion. And our argument then was, guys, let's live within our means. Let's cut. Let's because what happens is that, you see, spending is a behavioral issue. So the more money you have or you have assurance of getting access to, the more it shapes how you spend. But the less money you have, and this is a very logical argument, the less money you have, the less you'll have to spend. And that I think would apply also to government, that if they knew that they can only borrow so much, the deficit can only go so far, then they spend within that limit. That's not what you see. That's what not to see. So completely agreeing that Parliament can do, because the power of the purse has been given to the Parliament of Kenya until we change the Constitution. And I think Mheshimiwa, even as you say about the Constitution, I think the Constitution also is the same Constitution that gave us, the ability that Parliament plays a very critical role, and that's why then it's buttressed by institutions like the Parliamentary Budget Office, the inputs that different organizations, different institutions, different formations like the Okoa Uchumi campaign do give, is to basically provide evidence from other quarters, and then Parliament, as a body of collective representation, then does make decisions. And I think it is time to make tough calls. I don't think where we are right now, and if we continue moving at the same pace, we'll find ourselves in very bleak situations. So yes, agreeing that Parliament definitely is at the very center of those decisions, and I think perhaps it's time for Parliament to pronounce itself quite aggressively, in terms of what do we do with this deficit that continues to grow? What do we do? How do we rein in the dollar? How do we rein in, the kind of payments, including leading a conversation on what do we do with our debt repayment? It cannot be that this is just a discussion that just happens out there. It actually needs to happen within the House.
Your thoughts, Ambassador, your response?
I think I agree. Parliament has a lot of responsibility in terms of the budget process. And I also want to say the budget process is a long process. It begins way back in October, the year before, in terms of sector hearings. Then we consolidate into a budget, a policy statement around February thereabouts, and Parliament is involved. And Parliament can actually say, okay, we can return the whole document back to National Treasury, or we can amend. That is why if you look at the proposals at the budget policy statements, there are proposals by National Assembly in terms of the changes that it requires to be done, which then the National Treasury will take into account those proposals, which then forms the the estimates, the national common estimates, which are tabled in the House. I think you've heard the president saying we do not want to increase the borrowing, and which also many of us will carry that spirit. But what if you look at the current estimates, it contains some borrowing which will be done. But I want to say, when we transition to the new government, of course you'll have contracts which have been there before. You have the roads which were there before. We have the financiers who are doing the roads. We have so though we don't want to borrow more, but we have contracts which are continuing, which needs to be completed. If you look at most of the budget for this financial year, the one which you are doing the supplemental budget, is actually to complete, especially the road sector, because we have like almost $1 trillion commitments from the previous government that needs to be completed, and you cannot run away because government is government. Well, whether it was Uhuru government, whether it was Kibaki government, if you inherit a contract, it has to continue to fruition. So most of the things you see in the current budget is actually because of the commitments that were done, which then we need to finalize before now the new proposals come in.
Julian, has he answered your question satisfactorily?
Unfortunately, he hasn't. And, I like it when parliamentarians say that the government and the president are really committed. But when you look at the supplementary budget, it shows you where the real commitment is. Because if you look at the numbers and how they were jigged, the larger chunk was, of course, in the debt service, consolidated fund services. But then recurrent spending went up, development spending went down. So, but that's the reality we are in, yes.
Okay.
Maybe also, recurrent expenditure also includes the debt repayments in terms of the interest payments. If you look at, for example, we are looking at paying the Eurobond in the next, I think, 6 months less, yes. Which is $2 billion. If you look at what I've been saying about the exchange rates, it is a USD denominated loan. So interests alone have risen by almost 30% on account of the depreciating Kenyan shilling. So that alone, if you do 30% of 2 billion, it tells you how much our recurrent expenditure has gone up, not because of anything else, but because of the exchange rate itself. Yeah.
All right, Abraham, anything to add to that before I transition us to the Finance Act 2023?
Nothing to add. I think the message is clear.
All right. All right, so on as promised. Please allow me to blow my nose.
Not a problem, Molly. Not a problem, Molly. But I think even as you do that, I think one of the things which stood out for me in the Finance Act, the judgment we got yesterday for that matter, was the sailing through of the digital content creation. Remember, this was one of the pleas which came from the petitioners, digital assets tax as well. And also interesting to learn that there was a plea around the excise on human hair and fake beards, things which had been thrown out actually, and to give parliamentarians their credit. These things were thrown out by parliamentarians, but for some reason the petitioners still included them. I think it just speaks to the level of due diligence we as the public should also do as we take some of these matters to the corridors of justice.
Okay.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, parliamentarians on the fake hair. So essentially, you were talking about, Julian's, we focus a lot on the housing levy portion of things, right? Yes. But both yourself, Abraham, and Mheshimiwa say there was a lot more that was contained in this judgment. And it began with a question of, is this a money bill? Yeah. So, Julian's, why was that a critical question for the courts to answer?
Just to set some context here, if you read the provisions of the Constitution, and I think I have them here because I'm always being asked about public finance affairs. If you go to section 114 of the Constitution, and it speaks about money bills, this is what it says. A money bill may not deal with any matter other than those listed. If, in the opinion of the Speaker of the National Assembly, a motion makes provision for a matter listed as a money bill, the Assembly may proceed And it gives further that in the Constitution, a money bill means a bill other than the bill specified in Article 218. I think that other than is very important. And because Article 218 of the Constitution deals with the division of revenue and the county revenue allocation. And this was a contentious issue because of that question of the concurrence between the two houses on matters regarding the finance bill. And that is why the judges took the trouble to come in and say that this it met the threshold of a money bill, indicating it was dealt with adequately within the confines of the National Assembly. So that was really the gist. And I think it's important that Kenyans appreciate that bit, because the question was, we didn't have concurrence between the Senate and the National Assembly, yet a lot of these things cascade down to the county level. Where should we stand as far as the legitimacy of and the constitutionality of the Finance Bill then Act is concerned? So that is where the bench was coming from.
Question. So did the question arise from the fact that some of what was contained in the Act, touched on the county remit in terms of, was it housing and digital entertainment?
Yes. Yeah, I can actually see Rugo nodding, I think.
Abraham, perhaps you could provide some clarity for us on that?
Yeah. So one is that the concurrence is that some of these discussions also needed to go to the Senate for matters of conversation, because they affected functions of counties. A specific function here is housing. When you read Schedule 4 of the Constitution, when you look at it, basically it says that the responsibility in function 8 of county governments, county planning and development, including statistics, land survey and mapping, boundaries and fencing, housing, and electricity and gas regulation and energy regulation. In other words, actually, the function of this whole responsibility around housing and everything around it is a county function. But there was also the discussion about the fact that when such things come, they actually needed to have gone to the Senate also, for Senate also to facilitate a conversation, to weigh in what are the implications of this on county government. So it's really a functional responsibility, and that's why I was saying it was an aha moment, because it was a critical reminder that we have a devolved system of government, and the courts uphold that. We have a devolved system of government, and that all institutions of that devolution of power and of function of responsibilities need to be involved in that kind of a conversation, because it definitely outside the court system, there's been a lot of gray area. The PS for housing is on record asking for land from different. He says actually he did write to members of parliament asking for land from them to be able to do these housing projects. Yet this is a county function. So again, is in that an overreach? Is in that basically a doing of purposes? Whether in the first place even the ministry should be building houses, it's a different discussion. But yes, that's why this matter of a money bill actually did come. But there was also the issue, and Julians can say more about it, the fact that this being a money bill, the Finance Act being a money bill, seemed to also encroach into other spaces. Other jurisdictions, other acts, whether you're talking about housing, whether you're talking about the revision of the Employment Act, the Employment Act, and the like, and how far, basically the courts were addressing themselves to the fact that how far can a Finance Act repeal other acts that are not necessarily money bills as listed in Article 214 and 218, as it were. Thanks.
Mheshimiwa, your response to that? Yeah. Were you asked to make land available?
You see, I think Parliament is created under Article 95 and allocated duties 95 and 96, where the Senate, Parliament is defined as National Assembly and Senate. And the Constitution goes on to give powers to allocate duties to both the National Assembly and the Senate. In terms of what the Senate can do and what the National can do, it's under that article. And I think if you look at that section, it says that money bill may only originate from National Assembly. Yeah? And even if it originates from Senate, the National Assembly has the final authority over anything money bill in terms of the taxation. So I think the courts, when they looked at the finance bill, I know my brother there said it touched on housing, employment, and everything else. Yes, housing is there, but what section of housing? Here we're dealing with financing. And National Assembly has the power to approve all the taxes, except those, of course, which are under the national government, the licensing and so forth. But any other taxes, value-added tax, income tax, any other tax is under the purview of the National Assembly. So I think the courts were right to the extent that, yes, finance bill should be transacted in the National Assembly. Senate will then carry over from the division of revenue on a county allocation of revenue bill, which then allocates monies. And Senate has the final authority also in terms of the county allocation of revenue bill, deciding which counties will get how much, it's the function of Senate. And actually, as in the National Assembly, we have never wanted to even oppose or override the Senate in terms of the county allocation, because that is their sole mandate. But unfortunately, where there has been friction between the National Assembly and Senate is where one house wants to take over the functions of the other house. But I think the judiciary did a very good job there to say, okay, finance bill is the function of the National Assembly and the Finance Committee for that matter.
But if I may, sorry.
Proceed.
One of the issues which, and Dr. Rugas pointed out quite well, when the finance bill first came out, and I remember seeing the proposal around the Section 84 amendment, I asked, if you're watching, we have a show on Tuesday at 7:30 called Business Redefined. I asked, shouldn't this proposal be factored in the Statutory Levies Act on the housing levy? Because it has no business being in the finance bill. Yeah? And that is where the bench was coming from, that there was indication that there was overreach by the finance bill in its design and structure to areas where it has no business really being in. Because the finance bill, as Mhesh rightly pointed out, is a money bill. We're dealing with taxation issues here. But it sailed through nonetheless. Never mind. The bench went further and said, the housing levy, one of the contentious issues, one, it violates the principles of taxation. What are the principles of taxation? Because in a public finance discourse, that's a very serious pronouncement coming from the bench. Is it equitable? Is there ability to pay? Because the ability to pay principle in taxation is that taxation should be graduated, So when we, for instance, put it at 1.5 and then we leave no cap, it raises many questions. So the bench said many things about the housing levy. And to say that it has no legal framework, then what was the business of parliament if this thing has no legal framework? Yeah. We could raise many questions, but I wish to leave it at that.
All right, and actually, you've reminded me. I'll give you a chance, Ambassador, to respond to that. But I've remembered Julian's wrote something in all caps, so you can tell how strongly he feels about this. We just pull it up, and you were reacting to the conversation that was had last night on With All Due Respect with the chair of the Finance and National Planning Committee, and you said the bench clearly stated that the housing levy, quote, and you wrote this in all caps, violates the principles of taxation, lacks a legal framework, and is irrational. Your response, Ambassador?
And that was the bench, not me.
But you captured it in all caps.
I think what I said from the beginning is that judiciary is there to do their job, and their job is to interpret. Interpretation is, you can interpret anything, depending on your, what you believe in. Subjective. And that is why also judiciary has levels. Yeah, I agree. At that level, they said it is irrational. It has no legal basis. But then there is a process in which it will follow, and if it will go to this whatever level and it's agreed with them, then Parliament is also there. We will come and look at what they have said, and we will, of course, with our researchers and legal people, we will ensure that we accommodate what they are saying and also achieve what the government initially wanted to.
Dr. Rugo is nodding.
And I want to say...
He's nodding or he's shaking his head.
And I want to say, I want to say, I know we can look at this thing in terms of the tax and the levy. But if you look at the bigger intention, we are greatest as a nation as having the biggest slum in Africa, if not in the world, which is in Nairobi here. And I think the intention is, if we can do away with that slum, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not even next week or next month, but if we work towards doing away with that ISO, the slum that we are great to be hosting in Africa, then to me, if we take those small steps, but finally we get there, 10 years, 15 years, but there's a step forward. I think I accept. And of course, we have disputes on how we go about it, but the intention is there.
All right.
Yeah.
So we do need to take a break. But Abraham, on the other side, we'll come to you. Tell us why you are shaking your head on this subject on the other side of this break.
When you're finally released from pain, that moment when you start to get back to ordinary, and ordinary feels amazing. Whatever pain you're going through, release starts here.
Develop a problem-solving mindset. Think critically and approach questions, challenges, and setbacks with a positive and proactive attitude. You'll gain a reputation as someone who wants to make an impact and get things done.
Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology announces the 20th graduation ceremony to be held on Friday, 1st December 2023 at its main campus starting 8 a.m. Follow us live on YouTube and Facebook page.
Kenya, twende mbele. NCBA, go for it.
Discover a future of inclusivity at the inaugural Pensions and Conference 2023, KICC Nairobi, November 28th to 29th, 2023. Theme is Enhancing Social Protection and Inclusive Growth. Engage in exclusive exhibitions, personalized sessions, and extensive brand exposure, fostering meaningful connections. To secure your place, contact William at 0728 550 319. Be part of transforming our future into one that embraces social security and inclusivity, shaping a society where everyone thrives. Protect future yako.
For decades, a silent struggle has persisted in the vibrant heart of sub-Saharan Africa. Access to quality education for girls has been marred by barriers such as poverty, discrimination, and societal norms that echo through generations.
In the region, the common challenge is poverty. We have smart girls, even smart boys, but they are challenged with the poverty from their homes.
Education is our hope.
We are breaking barriers.
We dream of a brighter future.
On this show, we will focus on some of the ways in which agriculture can transform Africa's economies.
One of the areas that is critical in agriculture transformation is access to quality agricultural inputs.
What I think we should do is to be able to get a population that is well fed, that has good nutrition, and that you have good food security. then from there you will be able to have a population that thinks even outside the box.
I am impressed by African Development Bank's vision on 4 different elements. They talk about targeted investments in specific value chains and agroecological zones to make this happen.
And people come in and they're like, oh, it works. I can have ice cream and I'm not in any discomfort. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
The Sport Essence is a light serum, quickly absorbed to clear dark marks. Rich moisturizing cream is a gel cream type that deeply hydrates and prevents dark marks. I highly recommend Melano CC for healthy and happy skin.
Roto.
Welcome back to AM Live, and we're trying to make sense of the Finance Act judgment that was delivered yesterday by a 3-judge bench of the High Court. We'll be getting on phone the LSK president, and that is Eric Theuri, because his assessment of the judgment post the delivery was that the courts have given with one hand and taken back with the other. And I suppose he was talking about the 45-day stay. But first, Abraham, before we get into that, we were discussing the, Julian, what was it about the housing levy?
The housing levy, yes.
But you were shaking your head, Abraham. What were you disagreeing with? What did you disagree with?
Yeah, because I think it's important to go back to the basics and very, very critical. I hear Mheshimiwa there is talking about there is a possibility they will appeal. I think it's important to remember that this whole process is that there needs to be a logic into how things are done. But let me go back to the basics. The housing levy, the bigger discussion was what problem are we trying to solve? And the problem was said that, and Mesh has also said, we have the biggest slum. And an interesting thing, and these are the statistics that I think I've quoted even to the PS severally, from our own census of 2019, is that 61% of Kenyans already own the homes they live in. In the rural areas, that is 89%, and then falls in the urban areas to 20%. And therefore, the question was, and for these people in the urban areas, which is you, do we need to own a home? Or do we need access to proper housing, whether we are renting or we are owning? And assuming that the answer is yes, is government the right structure to build the kind of houses that we are looking for? But even push it further, and that is what the court actually did rule, for the group that you are imposing this tax on, who are salaried formal workers, do they need a house built for them of 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, or do they actually need better access to mortgages so that then they can own the kind of homes they desire, they want, as part of their self-actualization or whatever you call it, as part of their advancement? And these are questions that completely went under, and the idea was we will get land in the counties. We need to move people from their rural houses and move them to well-constructed, skyscrapers, and all these very lofty ideas. So, and we need to go back to that question, because and the lessons we have learned, for instance, from slum upgrading, which is not a very good term, of trying to move people from slums to new houses, is that when you do not address the income question, which was the main contention here, if you do not address the affordability question, even when you build houses for people, they move into them and they rent them out and they go back to what they can afford. And therefore, and I think Professor Omenya put it very clear that what we need to be sorting out is housing, not building of houses. As it were, and ask ourselves, what is the need of Kenya? If the statistics already, and this is based on headcount, are telling you that 89% in rural areas own their own homes. What are their needs at that particular point?
All right, so Abraham, I'll ask you to just hold it there. I saw you looking down, so I'm guessing you have some notes which will remind you where you are in your prosecution of your point. But of course, there's the issue of planning, because part of it was that you need to make more land available for agricultural production. And so some areas need to be designated for that and others for housing. But we'll get into that, and I will give you a chance to respond. But first, I did promise we have the LSK president, Eric Theuri, on phone. Mr. President, you had very strong remarks to make post the judgment, and if I recall correctly, you said, you know, it's as if the courts are working together with the executive. Why did you have such a big issue with this 45-day stay? Can you hear me, Eric? Eric, can you hear me?
Yes, Olive, I can hear you.
Okay, so I was asking, why did you take issue with the 45-day stay?
Thank you, and I'm sorry I couldn't join you in the studio. The reason why we have a concern with the 45-day is the fact that the decision in itself is extremely absurd, is unusual. It goes against a normal judiciary precedent and practice. And so we felt that there is no rational explanation for that decision other than perhaps an intention to assist and allow the government to being this levy. You know that judicial decisions, of course, the judges have the discretion to grant the orders as they did, but the grant of those orders must be based on rational and reasonable grounds that then show the thinking of the court. The challenge we are having with this decision is that you cannot be able to understand the reasons why those orders have been granted. The court in itself, before granting those orders, appreciated that the application that had been made by the state was predicated on facts that had not been presented before the court by way of an affidavit, so that the court can then examine those reasons. So therefore, we ask ourselves, then what was the essence of that decision? If you find a levy is unconstitutional, if you find a levy is lacking in legal basis as they did, if you find that KRA has no proper legal basis to collect those levies, if you find that the levy is in itself unconstitutional on the basis that it places a heavier burden on those who are salaried and to that extent that does not meet the principles set out in the Constitution on taxation, how then do you allow the continued levying of those taxes by way of an operation of stay? What would have happened if the decision for stay would not have been given? What would have happened is that the employers would have stopped remitting this levy. So where is the harm? If the court finds eventually that these levies are constitutional, then that would be the end of the matter, and then taxes would be paid. But if you find that those levies are unconstitutional, then you must act as your findings have given and allow the next port of call, considering that the High Court is not the last one with a voice on this issue, to have a fresh look at those issues and to make their own determination. But as it is, what the High Court has done is to give with one hand and take with another in circumstances that cannot be easily explained. And then so you begin to wonder, is the message that the executive has been giving that the parliament, that judiciary should look at its decision and ensure that they do not interfere with government policy, one of the considerations that may have been taken into account to give these extremely strange and absurd orders of stay on an oral application, and considering the decision that the court had just arrived at.
So, Eric, what is the recourse then? Or do we all have to wait until January the 10th? Does that mean December salaries, November, for those who have not received their pay slips? Does that mean that it will be subject to the levy, the housing levy?
Yes, that is what it automatically means, that for November it will be subject to housing levy. For December it will be subject to housing levy until January, or until the Court of Appeal hears and determines the application for stay. But the manner in which this court has handled this application for stay, in essence, renders any application for stay of execution in the Court of Appeal almost an academic exercise.
Okay, and I know Julian Zamboko was trying to make a point that, so how it has basically been framed is that it is discriminatory, the levy, because it targets those who are in formal employment vis-a-vis those who are informally employed. But Julian, you had sort of make the point that the court spoke about a violation of the principles of taxation. Would you like to ask the question? Just for clarity's sake.
Oh, yes. Eric, if I could ask a question.
Yes.
When the court says that it overburdens those who are on pay slips, and why I think the court made the decision eventually did with the stay orders is, how do we handle pay as you earn then? Because even pay as you earn, if you look at it critically, it targets those who are on a pay slip. Correct. Yes? And I think the court thought we have boxed ourselves into a situation here, because all these taxes will be challenged either way. Corporate tax does the same thing. So, Eric, I wonder how you would have viewed that case, because pay as well overburdens also on pay slips.
Not necessarily, and I think that would be an extremely tenuous argument to make, because pay as you earn is a tax on income. Those who are in informal employment, their income is also taxed when they make their declarations. Be it if you are in a business, then you are subject to corporation tax. You're subject to all manner of taxes. For example, if then we want to make that argument and see how then it falls on its face. Those who are in business are subject to also other taxes. They pay, for example, corporation taxes, which those who are in employment don't pay. They pay licenses and fees for their businesses, which is also a form of taxation, which people in formal employment don't pay. So it would be an extremely logical argument to argue that pay in that sense then is illogical. The argument here is this, and I think that is what is lost on a lot of people. You are taxing people who are salaried to provide houses for everyone. That is the discriminatory aspect of it. Remember, I might be owning my own house, so I do not need, in essence, the affordable housing scheme, because probably I am suffering under a mortgage. So how do you level that with this tax that is intended only at those who are in formal employment to provide services for a cross-section of society? Pay, corporation tax, and whatever goes into a fund, into the consolidated fund, and provides services for basically everyone. But this is a tax specific to the provision of affordable housing. Remember, under the Constitution, it is the executive, or rather the national government, has the constitutional responsibility to provide housing. So when it comes up with a scheme that is intended to actually just tax a particular section of society that may never benefit from that levy, then to that extent, that is the aspect of unconstitutionality. And I think once the decision and the full text of the decision comes out, that would be it, because that was the argument that the Law Society made before the court in terms of the discriminatory aspect of that provision. And remember, this was an amendment that was being done in the Employment Act.
All right, Eric, thank you for that contribution. You have given meaning to pregnant pauses, because I was like, wait, did the line drop? But thank you for speaking to us this morning. I know you have a court matter to attend to, so I will release you to attend to that, but thank you for providing that insight for us. So I know I stopped you short, Abraham, from making your point, from concluding your point. You are talking about the housing levy. People in the rural areas have homes of their own. The issue that needs to be addressed is a question of income. Yeah. And the question that arose for me was part of what I have understood this is intended to cure. And I know he said, like, if you're upgrading, slum upgrading, although you took issue with the phrasing of that, that people will rent them out and then go back. That is a lesson you say we have learned from previous attempts. But also, wasn't it meant to cure the planning problem that you subdivide land, and agricultural land is inhabited as opposed to being optimized for agricultural production?
I think the question of agricultural production, first of all, is a matter that is as far as related to land and land subdivision. I think it's a matter that is increasing in some spaces and not in all spaces, because, as you know, yes, the arable land we have is still small compared to to land that is arid and semi-arid. But that's land that, if with irrigation, you still can do quite a lot. I did not hear that conversation a lot, because then, if this is an argument for moving people from rural land to free land for agriculture, or from stopping people from going, into buying plots, and constructing for themselves, then the intervention needs to be based on need, and that's the point I was trying to make. But the other basic I was saying is that this is not the first time the court is, declaring itself. This matter had also been, there was an initial ruling actually on the same thing, and it was found again. It almost, it was irrational. Even in the previous. Remember, it had been brought up in the previous government. I forget the full details of it, And the point is simple, that first you need to have a need that you're trying to address. Then you need to ask yourself, as the president of LSK, Bonatheuri, has said, you need to ask yourself, as you are effecting this kind of this kind of a decision, who are the people who you are targeting for the collection? Are they the people who actually need this kind of a service? But also to appreciate that there are many financing models that exist out there that can be facilitated to provide the kind of support. In this whole discussion, the role of the National Housing Corporation, NHC, has been very muted. It's been more the discussion around the State Department for Housing, and specifically led by the PS, which also raised questions. Is there structure? Is there framing? But lastly, is that this also, the PS framed it as an employment creation. In fact, the agricultural discussion was less than the one on employment creation. Mm-hmm. And I took issue with that, because if you are working towards employment creation, whether it's in the making of hinges and doors and, in the construction and all those kind of things, again, there was not clarity of how much employment you're trying to create, because a lot of this high-rise, large-scale kind of construction is mechanized. Two, You still, on the other hand, are not dealing with the cost of importation because there are still some of the products that you need to be able. And therefore, for me, that has been the concern. That has been the concern of many Kenyans. That what need exactly are you trying to solve? But the most important for me, from a PFM angle, is that there was actually no framework from a PFM angle, a framework that creates the housing levy that explains to you that this is the plan of government in terms of housing. And just to correct Bwana Theuri, housing policy is the responsibility of the national government. The actual housing planning and development is actually a responsibility of the county governments as per the constitution. And what exactly are you trying to achieve? What need are you trying to deal? And then you create a framework so that then the fund, the housing fund that was being created and is to be put into this money is actually based on a PFM structure. That was not there. I'm not too sure it is there either even now. So that, as we were told earlier, the money will just be deposited within the consolidated fund, consolidated fund, and it becomes money like any other money. So right now, if you were to ask, which is the question I would like to find, how much money has been collected? The last count we had is about 16.1 billion. Where has it been spent? What kind of initiatives has it activated? How is it being accounted for? Who is responsible fully for it? Is it the National Treasury? Is it the State Department for Housing? That framework does not exist and raises a lot of questions. The regulations attendant to it, what can that money be spent on, especially when it was moved from that when you contribute to it, you can get a house, to the fact that now it's a general purpose kind of a tax. From a PFM angle, there raises a lot of concerns about, Julian has talked about the equity angle. I will not go back into that because then it is not equitable in the first place. The questions around, fairness, but also the questions around accountability, around transparency. Where is this money being spent? Why is it being spent there? Is that the rightful place for it to be spent, as it were? Those are the points I really wanted to speak to. Thanks.
All right. Ambassador Langat, I'll give you a chance to respond to that. As for the figure that has been collected so far, the Standard talks about 18 billion shillings. Amount Kerry said it had already collected from salaried employees. But what is this seeking to cure?
I think, thank you very much. I think the president of LSK did say that under the constitution, the national government is obligated to provide housing, of course, food, maintain environment, and so forth. And Abraham here has actually said, do we really need houses? Do we need to own them, or we need to rent them, or do we need access? I would say, to me, we need access to housing, whether you own it or through rental, but Kenyans need access to affordable housing. I think he has also mentioned that 61% of Kenyans in the urban areas, if I got him right, is they own houses. And I think he said almost 100% in the rural areas, they own houses. I think...
I think he's clarifying that point, Jackie. Yeah. If we could get his sound. Abraham, are you on mute?
Clarify.
Sorry?
Allow me to clarify. According to the national census,
yes,
of 2019, 89% of Kenyans in rural areas own the homes they live in. 20% of those in urban areas own the homes they live in. So when you do an average, it brings you and this is by households, out of the 12 million households that we have. That's according to the statistics, the census of 2019.
All right, thanks for that.
So as I said, I think Kenyans need access to housing, whether it is rental, whether it's ownership, but they need access to quality housing in terms of, water being there, sanitation facilities, lighting facilities, and so forth. And how do you make them access the housing? It's actually through supply. Supply means you build more houses. You build more houses. Of course, it will take a lot of time. How do you get them to be built? It requires funding. Now, that is where the debate is. Funding. So the government is proposing that we have a levy called the housing levy, where we can improve the supply of housing. Of course, in terms of the constitution, that says that government should provide housing. I think that's where the debate is, and I think everyone has their own interpretation from the judges, from ourselves, and everybody else. At the level of at the rural areas, I think you talked about the agricultural land being made available. That will require a lot of discussions, culture. You know, the people live in one area in your culture, like where I come from. If you have 10 acres and you are 3 brothers, your brother will stay in another corner, another corner, another corner. But maybe in future we need to agree and say, let's live in half an acre, then we farm the other side. But I think generally we all agree that we need housing, affordable housing. Now, how we go about it is now where the debate is, and everyone has their own discussion.
All right.
Just coming.
Yes, and as you do that, because I'm looking at the clock, also for you were saying the thing that you feel we're not giving sufficient attention is a question of public participation. So,
2 things, Olive. First is that on the housing levy, I think it's important we remind Kenyans. The housing levy, first of all, came in through Finance Bill Act 2018. It was challenged in court. And the reason why the moment this thing passed, on iTax there was already a way of deducting housing levy was because it has been there since 2018. Why is this thing going to the corridors of justice twice? It is being deemed to be unconstitutional, and we are still protecting it through conservatory orders. It doesn't make sense, and I agree with the LSK president on that. So there's history to this. And if people are consistently telling you we don't want something, maybe there's a point to think about there. To the public participation, Justice Christine Meoli spoke eloquently to this issue, and the bench pronounced itself that it was satisfied that the National Assembly conducted public participation adequately. And it went further to state, there is no provision in law that if we give you our feedback as the public, you must incorporate it. That is where we have, we part ways. There must be a mechanism through which we feel that we are not just being engaged in a cosmetic exercise, our feedback actually counts for something. Otherwise, Kenyans will not see the point of this public participation in the PFM framework. And yet, it's a very pivotal point. The finance bill comes, you're given an opportunity. The budget policy statement comes, you're given an opportunity to give your feedback. So we need to think about it, especially as the legislators. To what extent can public participation have meaning? Because if indeed we can just submit our feedback and it's all rejected, what is the point?
Your response?
I can just respond and say that public participation, what Parliament receives, it receives a lot of information, and actually takes into consideration many information that comes in. Maybe for this particular, if you check, as we said earlier, it was 3%. Now, after listening to the public and everything else, it was reduced to 1.5%, which is 50%. But Julian
keeps saying without a cap.
No, that's also his interpretation, and there's also our own interpretation. Number 2, there are other things that also we received and we actually acted upon. You talked about the air, the human air, the ladies, whatever. And when we received the information that it is discriminatory on women, so we took into consideration and we removed that from the tax system. So there are so many other things that we actually received from the public and we acted upon. We received requests from the tea sector, packaging. We were able to segregate
even video and exported services.
Yeah, exported services. So we took into consideration a lot of information from the public. Maybe the only one which is contentious is this one, which we also did it maybe halfway, but we considered it.
All right. Yeah. So Abraham had the last one, and I'm tempted to ask, is your beard real? But you were one of those who met, drafted your submission, submitted to the committee. So it turns out the housing levy may not be the only thing that will be appealed. It looks like petitioners may also appeal the decision on public participation. But your thoughts on that portion of the judgment?
First of all, I think it's important to appreciate that public participation has made a lot of progress. We have spaces. This particular one was interesting because there were many submissions. I think in about 1,400 or 1,600. I forget the number. I was part of the team of the Okoa Uchumi campaign that also made a fairly lengthy submission. I don't think anybody expects that everything they say will be taken, will be put into the system and will be taken as is. What we expect is that there is a process of showing how it was considered and a rationale given as to why a certain decision was taken and not the other, which is really what baffled us when we saw, finally, when all these people come and tell you it's not going to work. We are the employers, we are the employees, we are the Kenyans. This thing is not addressing the need and it should not go. Then you go ahead and do it without even giving any proper reasons. I think that's where the challenge is. As we move forward, I think what Kenyans are expecting is greater feedback to their input, a feedback loop that basically shows. And the committee tried, but they only said, we considered this, we rejected. We considered this, we accepted. We considered this, but for such certain substantive issues like these ones, then they require a bit more conversation, and even in the terminology, the discussion was, if it's a levy, then levy to the people who are consuming the service, because a levy normally it's only paid by those who are consuming that service. If today, if you don't consume any petroleum, you don't pay any petroleum levy because it's charged on that particular service. Finally, I think moving forward, it will be important that the government continues to listen to its citizens, and that members of parliament, both those members of the National Assembly and members of the Senate, actually do represent the views and the perspectives of the citizens that they represent. I think that is going to be critical because we are going to be raising more and more questions. And yes, my beards are real. When I have a bald head, so right. I need to at least keep something. Thanks.
All right, so I will have to end the conversation there. You did bring up the question of mafuta. Julian, utuambie kama hiyo 16.8% VAT was included in this judgment. We are waiting for the full judgment. Thank you for joining us on AM Live. My name is Oliver, Julian Zaboko, Ambassador Benjamin Langat.
Got unbeatable shows for the whole neighborhood to choose from.
I can have my happily ever after.
So stay connected to DSTV this holiday season to make the best entertainment yours. DSTV, it's your moment.
Develop a problem-solving mindset. Think critically and approach questions, challenges, and setbacks with a positive and proactive attitude. You'll gain a reputation as someone who wants to make an impact and get things done.
Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology announces the 20th graduation ceremony to be held on Friday, 1st December 2023 at its main campus starting 8 a.m. Follow us live on YouTube and Facebook page.
Meet the Botswana Meat Commission, the heartbeat of the nation's agricultural prowess. A key player in transforming the country's abundant cattle population into a source of economic vitality.
On this show, we will focus on some of the ways in which agriculture can transform Africa's economies.
One of the areas that is critical in agriculture transformation is access to quality agricultural inputs.
What I think we should do is to be able to get a population that is well fed, that has good nutrition, and that you have good food security. Then from there you will be able to have a population that thinks even outside the box.
I am impressed by African Development Bank's vision on 4 different elements. They talk about targeted investments in specific value chains and agroecological zones to make this happen.
And people come in and they're like, oh, it works. I can have ice cream and I'm not in any discomfort. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
Nifagie na kanyumba kangu niende benki hesabu na vipesa vyangu. Nitadrive nifagie na kanyumba kangu.
To get Nitadrive by Zabron Singers, dial star 811 star 849 hash.
Skiza na Nation.
Reach your audience instantly and make a lasting impression with Nation Sema. Affordable SMS at 0.3 Kenya shillings. Own sender ID for 10,000 Kenya shillings plus 10,000 free SMS. To sign up, please call 0790 111 111 or email us on nationsema@ke.nationmedia.com.
For decades, a silent struggle has persisted in the vibrant heart of sub-Saharan Africa. Access to quality education for girls has been marred by barriers such as poverty, discrimination, and societal norms that echo through generations.
In the region, the common challenge is the poverty. We have smart girls, even smart boys, but they are challenged with the poverty from their homes.
Education is our hope.
We are breaking barriers.
We dream of a brighter future.
Tharaka University, a public institution of higher learning located in Tharaka Nithi County, offers PhD, Masters, Bachelor's, Diploma and Certificate programs in its 5 faculties. The Council, Management and Staff and the graduating class of 2023 invites you to the second graduation ceremony to be held on 1st December starting 8 a.m. Congratulations, class of 2023. University's faculties are Faculty of Business Studies, Faculty of Education, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Faculty of Life Sciences and Natural Resources Management, Faculty of Physical Sciences, Engineering and Technology. Tharaka University, education for freedom.
This is NTV.
Good morning and welcome to Your World. This morning we are celebrating interior design and we are in the festive season officially, right? Marked if you go by Western culture, Thanksgiving. Now we are into the Christmas season, and with me in studio and educating us on matters interior design and why this matters. I have three ladies. Let me start with Madam Vice President Cecilia Mbati, who is VP Interior Designers Association of Kenya. Good to have you in studio this morning. We also have Shiko Mushiri, who is Director Shiko Interior. Simple. I say Shiko, you think Shiko Interiors. We also have in studio Yvonne Wamushe Mweru, who is an interior designer. So, first of all, when we are talking about interior design, what are we talking? Are we talking sofa sets? Are we talking curtains? What exactly does interior design cover? And I'll start with you, Cecilia.
Wow. So interior design is wide, yeah? For me, I always say that interior design is the science and art of promoting wellness and healthy living for the masses. Yes. Because interior design begins from the concept of designing a building for the users. So it's about more of functionality. It's about the ventilation of the space. It's about the lighting. So it's everything from the beginning of designing of a house. Then we move to the decor, where we start talking about color. We start talking about the furniture, we start talking about carpet, and the other things that now beautify the space. For me, that is what, as a practicing interior designer, that's what interior design means. Yeah.
So you said promotes wellness
and healthy living
and
of the users.
Healthy living. Because for me, maybe, so it's not just about, oh, this throw pillow looks pretty and it goes well with this color sofa set. So, you know, so I hear you say literally from the design of the space, how the space is designed is where you guys come in, Shiko. Have I understood Cecilia correctly?
You understood her correctly. It's balancing functionality with aesthetics. Understanding how the user interacts with the space, how they live within the space, how big their family is, how they entertain. I mean, if they are introverts, you have to take that into consideration. If they are extroverted, you have to take that into consideration. You have to understand the user first. Yeah, and then now make the space livable for them. Yeah, so it's very personalized.
It's personalized
Completely.
and based on whatever the needs are.
What the needs
of
are.
the person who's occupying that space. But I'll come to you, Yvonne, now. For many people, they're like, we have bigger fish to fry now. We are thinking about spaces. But does this actually impact, as Cecilia has said, your wellness and your health?
Yes, definitely it does. Right now, you want to come home to a space that is beautiful, it's clean, and with interior design, we give you that clean finish, and we give you something that functions. So if you have something that functions, let's say, if it's functioning, it's organized. Meaning, when you have the entrance, from the entrance, you can go straight maybe to a bathroom or a bedroom or a living room, or so this is where interior design comes in as wellness and also your mental health, really. If you're in a clean and a beautiful space, even your mental health is functioning more properly as compared to, you know, any other space. Yes.
So, I mean, sometimes on occasion, I find myself flipping through an architectural digest and there are all these terms like modern, I don't know what, and, you know, so how can you simply break it, like you sit down with a person whose space you're looking to curate elements. I don't know what's you know the technical terms. I don't know what the technical terms are. You'll have to assist me here. But you have a space. You sit down with the person who's going to be occupying that space, and you get a sense of who they are. Is that essentially how it works?
Yes,
Cecilia.
And you get their needs, what they need. So I'll give you an example of a kitchen. Yeah. So someone is building a house. Yeah, and they tell you they want a 3-bedroom. Definitely, you'll figure out they have a family. Right? So maybe their bedroom, master bedroom, maybe for the child and another bedroom. So first of all that you figured their needs, yeah? So then now you start going to specifics. What is the function of this room? This is a bedroom. So now you start thinking, this bedroom, where is the entrance? Here. where are you supposed to put your windows? There, yeah. I'm sure you've gone to a space where
So
maybe you
this
want
is
to
from
rent.
the design stage.
Yes, from the design stage. You've gone to a space where you want to rent, and you've gone into a bedroom, and you're like, where am I going to put my bed? Yeah, because where the provision for the bed, the window is above there, and that is not functional. Yeah. So then maybe move to the kitchen. Look at the needs. So the madam of the house will say, I want a big kitchen, I want an island, I want, my kids to be here, I want to be able to eat here. Then you say, oh, then this detects the size of the kitchen. Yeah? Otherwise, you go to a house, you find a very small, tiny thing like a store, and you're like, how am I going to function here? You see, my needs are these and these. So first of all, you sit down with the client, you assess their needs, and then you give them a functional solution. Yeah, it means when they're coming to live in that house, it is functional, and as she has said, it is comfortable. And that now dictates that it gives the user the wellness that we're talking about. Yeah. And then when you go now down to the colors, we have something that we call color psychology. It's not just color. Yeah. I just don't come.
It's not just color.
No, I just don't come and splash a yellow on your bedroom. Mm-hmm. What is the effect of yellow on sleep?
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I just don't come and splash a blue in a dining space. What is the effect of blue on appetite? Yeah. So there is the very scientific and technical aspects of interior design that actually affects a human being. Mm-hmm. Material. Yeah. What type of tiles am I giving you? Am I giving you slippery tiles? Yeah. What do you need? Where are you? Are you in a tropical zone? Are you in a place maybe in Limuru there where it's so cold? Mm-hmm. Why am I giving you tiles? Yeah. And it makes the house colder. You see? So there is the technical thinking in interior design before actually putting something there. It has to be thought through.
All right.
So, yeah.
Shiko, and actually it's interesting you say that, because I remember I was watching something on BBC and they're saying how coffee tastes different in a red cup as compared to, I don't know what color cup the other one was, but it's interesting. I really hadn't given it much thought, because many people rent, and so you find the space the way the space is, and then you start collecting different things as you move along, right? So that's how you, and for some of us, it's a cluttered space. But it's interesting because it does affect your mental health, and this is where you go to escape for peace of mind. So thanks for that. Color psychology. All right, I'll look more into that. But of course, you as interior designers, I'm guessing there would be areas of specialization, because you have office space, then there's residential buildings. Do you even work, Shiko, with developers?
Yes. Actually, I prefer to work with developers because they give you ultimately a better space to live in. What happens with developers, they want to cut to maximize their profits, right? So it happens that when they get me or a professional involved, we give them the best possible outcome within their budget, of course. So layout issues, especially what she's saying, window placement, storage issues. I mean, it helps the developer to get an interior designer ultimately, because their space will make sense. Yeah. So for me, yes, we work with developers, and I like to work with developers because ultimately the space you give the client or the person who's buying or living in your space is a better space ultimately. Yeah. So
I mean, it works better all round if you get on board really early in the process. Early in the process. Yeah. Because sometimes, I don't know, you're like, oh, let the architect deal with the design, let this happen. But for you, what's your preference, Yvonne? Are there specific spaces that you tend to lean more into?
Not really, to be honest, because for different spaces, it gives you a different experience, it gives you a different feel, especially when it comes to seeing the result in the end. Because now if I say now I'll just focus on commercial spaces only, but commercial spaces have a different feel to residential spaces. Yes, because commercial spaces I'll focus on more lighting and how the space will function, and probably more space. But with residential spaces, it will be more of a cozy feeling, and
the feel
more or
is
less
different.
Yeah, so it's different, and so I can't say that I have a preference. Yeah, what I really care about is the result in the end.
But isn't like commercial spaces, isn't it just about square feet and put a table there and a chair? I mean, what else do you really need, really?
No, you need to think about the workers. You need to think about productivity. What is the effect of your office on your productivity? Is the lighting okay? Is the lighting hindering the workers from working? Is the color hindering the workers? Is the space enough for whatever it is? For instance, if it's an architectural firm where people are drawing and all that, more space, where people are calling, it's a call center and all that, and there is noise and everything. What is the effect of that space to the productivity? And then that translates to the financial income that you're getting. So even in an office environment, it's different. In a school, education is different. What is the effect of that space to the learner? In a kindergarten, it's different. How are these kids, interacting with this space? What is the effect of that space to these young kids? They are growing, they want to engage, You see, so every space has an effect. So we can't, as interior designer, we just don't go to spaces and just put things like furniture and everything. We had an event and there was a presenter talking about designing for neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is for diverse needs and for special needs, for kids with special needs or adults with ADHD. A little bit of flicker in the light will affect that person. The little kids maybe who have autism, you see, the color. You go and put a bright color, it just affects them. They become too hyper, So everything is supposed to be designed for the user, for the specific user. That is when you get it as an interior designer.
Shiko, I'm curious, how did you get into this space of interior design?
Wow. I actually did a science course. I'm a very scientific, the way I think about things is very logical. And I worked for 2 years and I just decided this is not for me. And I started selling home stuff, retail. And then the retail space became very tricky. And someone asked me, please, you sell lamps. You come to my my house. And that's how I did my first space and my second and my third, and here I am 10 years later.
So do you think you have a knack for it? Like, do you need because I know you're saying you're a very logical person. Must you have like an artsy side to you?
Yes. I don't think of myself as a creative. I look at it as problem solving. This is an issue I need to solve. In the meantime, I can think about the color and the furniture style and whether this style will match that. So yes, I am a creative, but a very logical creative. So I don't know how, whether they can relate.
I have my cousin, she's called Tess Malinda. She shared the photo and she's really into interior design, the poster. And she's like, this will be lit. And she said for her, why she would probably not thrive in the interior design space, although she has an eye for it, is because she says she look at a space and see its potential, and perhaps the client wants something, but she's like, no, it would look better like this. How do you handle because speaking for myself, I love bright colors. So I see a mustard, I see a lime. I just want to be surrounded by bright colors. But as Cecilia has pointed out, it could affect the quality of my sleep depending on where we put these bright colors. So how do you navigate that between, so that at the end of the day when you have your portfolio and you're showing this is the work I have done, you're not hiding it because you're like, woo! Tastes. How do you manage those taste differences?
to be honest, I would say when I first started practicing interior, it was a big challenge because I'm one of those people as well. Because I have my own style, and I think, why do you want to put yellow here? I mean, let's do this color instead, or don't do this furniture. This will look better. But you see, I'm not the client. The client should be your first priority. You listen to what they want, and if it makes sense, then you go ahead with it. But if it doesn't, that's why you're there to guide them through. Okay, so you can come up with a couple of concepts, and then concepts that relate to what they want, and then maybe you can meet a common ground. Maybe that's how I deal with my clients.
I like that. You come up with a concept, like they tell you what they would like, then you come up with a couple of concepts, and then you're able to
find a common ground.
Yes.
Yes.
But Cecilia, so there is an association, right? You're Madam Vice President. Does Yvonne, do Shiko, do they need some sort of accreditation as interior designers, or what's essentially the purpose of the association?
The purpose of the association is to promote interior design, to educate about interior design, and of course to enhance the skills of our members. Yeah. So when we're in our association, the three things that we look at is the education first, and then experience, and then continuous education. Yeah. So for you to be a member, we encourage education. Yeah. Because for me, I'm a trained interior designer. I did a bachelor's, although I wanted to become a lawyer and everything, but I had that eye, and my parents told me, go to this course, you will make it. I went there. I studied for 4 years, Nairobi University. And so there is something that...
Wait, so there's actually, you can actually study interior design?
Yes, there are courses. Nairobi University offers a course in interior design, and it offers a course in design, 4-year course. Yeah. So what I did at that time was design, and then specialized in interior design.
Okay.
We have
so
Maseno.
The distinction being?
The distinction
between design and interior design.
Interior design. They introduced interior design later.
Okay.
For now, the distinction is design. You do the whole design. So I could do graphics. I could do products. But and then I chose to specialize on interior design the 3rd year. But interior design, the course means you start from 1st year, just concentrating on interior design for the 4 years. And there are also colleges.
You're saying Maseno?
Yes, there is Maseno. There is JQuat, I think. TUC, yes. TUC, TUC. NIT is a college. And we also run a college. It's called the Kenya College of Interior Design. I do head strategic management of that college. We offer design courses from certificate to executive diploma. Yeah. So people can read. You see, like the likes of her, she came from another field, and she just got it. She has the she has it, and she has practiced, so she has experience. But she maybe doesn't have the education specific. She can go and do an executive, maybe even diploma. She can go and do a certificate, And what that does is that it changes the way you approach. Yeah, because there are certain principles of design. For instance, when you're talking about the color, that you say you like the bright colors. You come to me and say, what are your bright colors? You tell me yellow, orange, then I tell you, yeah, we can work with that. Why? Because there are principles of coloring. We have a 70-20-20 rule, a 70-20-10 rule. Yeah, where you can have your colors, but you have to balance them in terms of quantity. Yeah, so the biggest magnitude will be 70, will be more of a neutral color. I will introduce the neutral color that you want it to go with the brighter colors. Then I'd have your 2 bright colors at 20% and 10%, yeah? And still involve that in maybe your sofas and everything, in your murals, So there are some principles that you learn during studying. In terms of layouting, there are some principles that you learn in terms of standards, yeah? We have standards. For instance, a door has a standard of 90 by 2.1. Yeah, it is a set-specific standard that if you do a door less than that, it is not conducive for human. Yes, but you can do larger because of universal design. There's something called universal design, and that is what we are also promoting in the current event, the Africa Interior Design Week that has just ended. There is universal design, so designing for all people, meaning a person on a wheelchair can come and use this space, a pregnant woman, a child, you know. So you make maybe a normal door that's supposed to be 900, you make it wider to allow, you know, those differences. Yeah. So education is very important in our association. Yeah. And even if someone doesn't have an education, we encourage that, you know, to start, and we point you out where you can start. We help you. Yeah. And even if you're educated like me, I'm already educated. I have a degree. Yeah. I have a master's maybe in strategic management, but I would need continuous education. Yeah. For instance, when we talked about, I mentioned a speaker from South Africa. She's called Charis Johnson, the president of the South African Association. She presented a topic on neurodiversity. Then I was like, wow, this is, you know, something I need to learn more about. Yeah. And we had an institution called the International Design Continuing Education Council, which we are partnering with. Yeah. There are those specific small courses that you can take even if you're an interior designer. Yeah. Maybe you can just go deep into universal design, you can go deep into materials, you can go deep into, you see. So that is the role of the Interior Designers Association of Kenya, to promote interior design, to educate the masses. What you've just talked about here, I know a lot of people confuse what interior design is with DECA. DECA is part of interior design, but it's like the makeup we do. Yeah, it's like the lipstick we add. That is DECA. But now the functionality of the body, the functionality of the eyes, the mouth, the nose, where it is placed, the ears, now that is interior design. Yeah.
Well, it's very true, because like you said, we conflate the two, decor and interior design. All right, so we are taking a break, but we will come back on the other side, and I will ask Shiko, people go on Pinterest, they like it, they tell you, I want like this. Now, where do you get like that in your line of work on the other side of this break?
Young Scientist Kenya brings you the 6th National Science and Technology Exhibition in partnership with Kenya Innovation Week from November 27 to December 1st, 2023 at the Edge Conference Center, Nairobi, with the theme Developing Sustainable Solutions for Climate Change. This year's national exhibition is a hybrid event bringing together 418 students from 200 schools across 38 counties, showcasing 54 projects physically in Nairobi and 154 on our online platform. The exhibition is a culmination of Young Scientist Kenya mentorship program through outreaches and coding programs. To register for this extraordinary event, visit www.ysk.co.ke. Young Scientist Kenya, inspiring the next generation of young scientists.
Develop a problem-solving mindset. Think critically and approach questions, challenges, and setbacks with a positive and proactive attitude. You'll gain a reputation as someone who wants to make an impact and get things done.
Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology announces the 20th graduation ceremony to be held on Friday, 1st December 2023 at its main campus starting 8 a.m. Follow us live on YouTube and Facebook page.
In the heart of southern Africa, Botswana stands as a beacon, strategically located at the crossroads of the African continent. A country of natural beauties, vibrant culture, and progressive development.
Natalia is my daughter!
Yes. I'm also sure that she is, but you have to take it easy.
It's all so clear. Why didn't I see it? Carmen doesn't want to give her to me because she wants her for herself, but she's my daughter.
It seems like only yesterday when you learned to walk and talk, and that you went to school for the first time. Having you with me has been the biggest blessing a mother could ever have.
Oh, Mother, now you're going to make me cry.
Well, actually, I came to look for Rodrigo to talk about the issue of the fraud with equipment.
There's no reason why you should discuss those kinds of topics in front of the servants. Let's go to the study.
Head over heels.
The Sport Essence is a light serum, quickly absorbed to clear dark marks. Rich moisturizing cream is a gel cream type that deeply hydrates and prevents dark marks. I highly recommend Melano CC for healthy and happy skin. Roto.
Ngara looks so pretty there. You're watching Your World, and with me in studio, we have three ladies, and together we're celebrating interior design. They're giving me a schooling. They're telling me, wait. Do not mix up decor and interior design. Interior design covers much more than just decor. And so we have Madam VP Cecilia Mbati, who is the VP Interior Designers Association of Kenya, and she was just telling us about the inaugural Africa Interior Designers Week. I've seen some things on the program I'll ask you about. And we also have Shiko Mushiri, who is Director, Shiko Interiors. And we have another interior designer in studio, Yvonne Wamushi Mweru. But Shiko, in terms of sourcing, so you work with a developer, you have a space, and then for those who are looking to buy apartments or houses or whatever, the reason may be there's a show, it's called a show house, yes, or a showroom, you know. So somebody goes on Pinterest and they see something they like and they tell you, I want this space to look like this picture. Where do you even begin to source a lamp that looks like that? I know you have I know you said you started actually by selling but like, where do you begin?
Wow, first of all, if you're going to hire a professional, allow them to listen to your inspiration and be able to translate it to your space. Because some of the things we see are really not practical for your space, right? So, for example, sectional sofas are not for every house. The L shape are not for every house. So, as much as you may like it on Pinterest, I, as a professional, should be able to tell you, well, girl, this is not going to work, right? So, maybe I can ask you from that photo, what do you like about this? Do you like the color? Do you like the textures? Do you like the light fixtures? Tell me what you like about this that you would want translated to your space. So as far as sourcing is concerned, well, now with 10 years of experience, I think you know, first of all those shops, on Mombasa Road, you know the one with the best decor, you know with the one with the best deals, you know the one with sales going on. So I guess that comes down to experience. Also knowing skilled artisans, because there are so many skilled people in this country, but also there are very many cons who are using our work online and portraying it as theirs. So I guess as far as sourcing goes, it just comes down to the experience of the interior designer you have. If you're doing it yourself, again, all those shops on Mombasa Road are an amazing place to start. Also talk to us. I mean, if you see something on my page and you want to know where it's from, I'd be happy to tell you where it's from, right? So, yeah.
Okay. And before we get even into the role of technology in your line of work, I didn't ask you, Yvonne, how you got started in this business.
So first of all, it's something that runs in my family. My mom was a carpenter, and she's a carpenter, and we also have history of a bit of architecture in the family. So growing up, and being surrounded in that kind of environment, it just kind of encouraged me to, you know, I took interest in it, and then so I studied it in KU, and yeah, I got out and I started practicing.
And is the people say ground vitu ni different. Your expectations, how is it now that you're actually practicing?
Oh, it's very different. Oh, it's very, very different. I would say that I learned more outside than I was in school, because school is important, yes, but I would say it just got me started. It taught me the basics. Yeah, and when I got to practicing it, it's very broad. You come to learn that there's so much out there that you didn't know. And then interior design is something that's always growing, and something new will always come up. So you never really stop learning. Yeah.
And I'm guessing it helps to have a community, like you were saying, like to source stuff. Like you can call somebody up and say, but I'm looking for a piece similar to this, you know, might you have an idea of where I could get it or something like that? All right, so do you work in a design firm?
Yes, I work at Unlock Ventures, Unlock Africa Ventures. Yeah, we are in Westlands. We specialize in interior design and construction in general, but our major is interior design.
Yes. So I was looking at the write-up on the Design Week. Interior Design Week, Africa Interior Design Week. And looking through the program, I saw you had taking part architects, designers. Why not just interior designers?
Our theme, first of all, was we thrive together. In this built environment, and every interior designer will tell you, and every architect will tell you, that we have to work together. Yeah? Built environment is us coming together to make a space. So a building involves an interior designer, involves an architect, involves a structural engineer, involves a quantity surveyor. So these four professions are actively involved in construction, and working together is the best way to go. Yeah, because the moment you miss one of these people, and the ones that have been missing a lot are the interior designers at the inception stage. The moment you miss one who is maybe an interior designer, you end up with a small space, non-functional. You end up with a space that is not lighted. Well, the architects learn interior design as a unit, right? But interior designers study interior design for 4 years. So for me, I did strategic management. I can tell you I did financial management, but I cannot tell you that now I'm a finance expert. That is how it works, yeah? So one has more years in specializing in something, and the other has a few hours in reading something. It means that the architect has no entire knowledge of interior design than the interior designer who has specialized in it. The architect cannot go into color psychology. Has any architect ever gone to that? An architect can rarely go into the lighting, the specifics, yeah? The material choice. They rarely go into that. Their work is to work on the structure. And so that when we said all these professional to bring them together, we were looking at uniting the industry. And that is our call as the Interior Design Association of Kenya, that we unite and give people better spaces, spaces that are working, sustainable spaces. So that is the thought that went behind bringing all these professions together.
I mean, there's a time I was moving to Ruaka, and we looked at so many, looking to rent, looked at so many apartments, and I remember I kept saying, I don't like the finishing. So, you know, I kind of get the whole functionality versus an aesthetics that you were talking about, Shiko, you know, maybe you want to shower, you don't want the loot to be there, or you know what I mean? So I get the considerations and why it's important, because it also, I assume, impacts sales of these spaces, because you want somebody to walk into a space and love the space. But do you find that there's now greater appreciation of the role that interior designers play?
Of course. Okay, let me make fun. People are more aware now of Kikuyu Gothic. You know, people are more aware now than they have ever been, because they are now seeing what a space can be. That it's not colored tiles, like blue on the floor, then brown on the wall, then a random pink wall. Like, there's much greater appreciation right now than there has ever been, at least. So I'm really appreciative of them just making it, of the Interior Designers Association, just increasing awareness that there's actually a profession that can make your space not just livable, but you enjoy living in the space. Yeah. So yes, I really hope people just, especially developers, and today we'll talk to developers, like where just simple things like layout. Please, the shower should be at the end, then the toilet, and then the vanity. It's the sink, and it can be a very simple sink, but that flow will help even the person who is using the space just to interact with it better. That if I'm just walking in to wash my hands, I won't get into the toilet or into the shower where it's simple things like that. Also, we don't need to have tiles on all the walls in the bathroom if it's not all a wet area. Things like those, that's why I'm saying we can save developers money. I mean, right?
Definitely. On the front end, because if you don't pay on the front end, you'll pay on the back end.
We also did bring in developers. They were our partners in this particular event. And the Kenya, the association, the KPDA, they really did appreciate. And, we are making that, that way, that we want to bring also the developer on board. And the association are our partners. So we're going to get there. Slowly, but you're going to get there.
All right. You've made my day with the Kikuyu God. But just again, looking at some of the things you were discussing, and I saw even affordable housing on that list. Let me see. So building bridges, which we've sort of addressed, encouraging collaboration between professionals in the built environment. I'm learning some new phrases here. Interior design versus climate change. I remember you were talking about tiles, is it a cold area? And also maybe you can elaborate more on that, the climate change thing, because it's like it's a hot button topic. Sorry, one quick second. And then the interior design versus affordable housing, and then build Africa by Africa. So we'll take it by step by step. But first, the whole climate change. What does climate change have to do with spaces?
It has everything to do with spaces. You know why? Materials. What is the effect of material that you're using on climate? Yeah? What is the effect of this production of these tiles on climate? There's something we call sustainable design in interior design. Use of sustainable materials, meaning materials are supposed to be reused and are not harmful to the users. For instance, when you talk about paint, you realize that the paint that is being used right now is a different kind of paint that does not affect the users. Yeah. So even from painting, from flooring, how is this carpet produced? We had someone from Dr. Flo was telling us about how their carpets are, something carbonated and everything. Sustainable materials are being used to create the carpet. That is how interior design is connected with
to climate change.
Yes, climate change. And Asian Interiors was our title sponsor, and we would look into their materials. Yeah, and then they have something, the flooring material that is the wooden flooring material, but is climate friendly. You see, and then they deal in solar. Yeah. And we were talking about, at some point in our event, the light kept on going in the evening. And they were like, that is why you need to use solar. You see? What is solar? Yeah? It is a sustainable use of energy, sustainable energy. Why? Because we don't have to do this, whatever that goes into making electricity. Yeah? So solar is more sustainable than the electricity that you're using. So when you talk about interior design, it reflects directly to climate change, because climate change is impacted by what we do in terms of manufacturing. All these people who are making materials are manufacturing. So whatever it is they're making, how does it affect our climate? That was our major connection.
How it's connected. And before we get to affordable housing, and you tell us whether hizi nyumba za Ruto ama you mean just affordable housing. on a light note. Yvonne, for somebody who's just, how long have you been doing this, interior design?
I'm finishing my 5th year now. Yes.
I mean, where have you, like the growth I'm guessing there has been an upward trajectory. So you say you've learned more in your 5 years out here than you did
in school. In 4 years.
Yeah. So what areas do you think there could be improvement in terms of education and continuous learning that Cecilia was talking about?
I would say schools should encourage people to practice interior more. You see, the way if you go into a science class and there's practicals and there's theory. So in school we do a lot of theory, and you know, our theory is more of like, you know, just drawing on the computer or drawing and pinning them up, and then you get this one time where you go for an internship, and that's the only time you actually get to, you know, practice. Yeah, so I think schools should encourage people to like do practicals a bit more, then it'll make more sense. Yeah.
Shiko, do you find that, so during the break you were talking about visiting South Africa, and you said, which expo was that? Deco?
Decorex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said Kenya is only second on the continent in your view to South Africa. So you know, are you optimistic that Kenya has some ways to go still, and a lot more exploration in this area?
Of course, I think we are not so far behind. It's not like, okay, this is done, let's give up. No, we are on the way. Like, I'm telling you, there's such skilled artisans. Like, I saw amazing furniture in South Africa. Like, the lines are clean, the joints are so well made. But I was like, okay, maybe we are not so far behind, because I'm seeing some of the work that's being produced by some of small artisans, like small companies led by women, like such amazing, amazing furniture. So I don't think we're so far behind that we should just throw our hands up, like we give up, we can't compete. No, we can. And I think we'll catch up with them, because I think they're a bit ahead as far as appreciation for professionals, budget-wise, just putting in the money that needs to match the design that you expect. Because maybe that's another thing we encounter. The budget doesn't fit the expectations, right? So, yes, I think once we appreciate interior design, interior decor as part of the wholeness process, or especially of our homes, we are not lagging behind, but we won't, you know, go further behind. Yeah.
I'm curious, what's the most challenging project you've ever taken on in this space?
Wow, furnishing a whole house. Because my client didn't want to move with anything. We have those. So I guess that was the most challenging, because especially for people who tell you, you know, Shiko, I trust you. Those are the most dangerous words to utter to an interior designer. I trust you. Where? Because where do you start? What if I don't meet your expectations? What if this goes wrong? What if my fundi doesn't deliver on time? So I guess those, for me, the client says, I trust you, and the budget matches the expectations, those are my most challenging projects.
You're a budget Cecilia, on affordable housing, I'm just assuming C is a serikali.
No, we are discussing affordable housing in relation to interior design. Of course, what we know in Kenya ni the serikali ones, yeah? And now we were asking pertinent question to the government. And this goes straight to the government. Where does the cost of the house come from? When you do your research, the biggest cost of the house comes from the materials. Yeah, it is about 70% the cost of the house comes from the material. The structure, very fine. You build this thing and it goes up and done. But where does the money? Where's the cost of the house go to? Materials, now making this house complete. Yeah. But what the government has been concentrating on is the structure. They're telling us about bricks. They're telling us about what other technology are they talking about in this affordable housing of the government. Yeah. So they're telling us about building of the structure. And then we are asking, where is the interior designer in affordable housing? Because if the cost is at 70%, then the interior designer must be at the center to advise you that when you're talking about affordable housing, maybe check your material. Yeah, that can bring down the cost of the house way much than when you're talking about just the structure of the house. Yeah, because when your structure just takes chuma, whatever it is, if it's a block, and cement, and that's it. Then you start going interior. You are now going into paint, you're going into tiles, you're going into lighting, you're going into. So for me, for us as interior designers and as the Interior Designers Association of Kenya, we are telling the government, you're focusing on the wrong things. Yeah? When you shift your focus to where it's supposed to be, then Kenyans can really have the houses that they want. Not to say that the ones that they are giving are not too much up to standard, but they are not up to standard according to us as interior designers.
You're saying you must be on the table.
We must be on the table to advise
jobs
you.
That have been created must include interior designers.
And who does those jobs? This is what she's talking about. The technical, the technical expertise, the fundis. What are they doing? Interior design. Like in our college, the Kenya College of Interior Design, we are teaching these people how to do what she's saying. How to do, we have these technical courses for technicians, how to do the finish as well. Yeah? Who are doing these things? They are these people, and they are in the interior design space. They are being guided by her and her, who are interior designers. So if we are not there on the table to guide these people, forget affordable housing. It's not going to work. That's what we were saying at the Africa Interior Design Week. So the government must sit with professions, correct professionals to guide them on how to approach such matters. That is why we are getting a little backlash, yeah? Because where is the discussion? Where is the participation? When we do that, then we can tell you clients want this and this, and I can point you to a client who says they want something affordable, yeah? And can sit down and discuss and say, what do you want in terms of affordable housing? Then you put your input there. Yeah, so that is what we were talking about, collaboration and how interior design plugs in to affordable housing.
Okay, thanks for providing that clarity. As we wind up, I look at the clock. Time has flown, has it not? Like it's really flown. Like already. But Yvonne, because I asked Shiko about her most challenging project. For you, what has it been? This far?
So far, my most challenging project would say, I think it was when I was dealing with kitchen and wardrobes alone. And wood is not cheap. Wood is not cheap. So if we get a client with a certain specification, and then maybe you deliver according to what they wanted at first, and then they come, they're like, no, it's not working, let's just do this again. And I know there's things like contracts that you sign and everything, but that project took longer than it should. Yeah, so I would say that was just my most challenging so far. I'm yet to experience more, maybe.
Okay, but here's to more conquering of said challenges. But Shiko, transitioning into this space from not having gone to started at the Kenya College of Interior Design, or having gone to, you said KU?
KU, yeah.
Yeah. Was that trickier? Did it make it trickier for you to navigate this space?
Yeah. First of all, interior designers measure things in millimeters. So even that alone, you're used to logically thinking in meters, 1.2. All of a sudden, you're being told 1,200, and there's mental math that has to go on, like, okay, 1,200 is 1.2. So simple things like those were really challenging at the beginning. Also establishing standards. The way she mentioned that a door must be 900 by 2.1. Like things like those. These are things that come naturally to them because they had those 4 years to process them. I was just thrown in and I have to figure things out. So yes, it was challenging at the beginning, but now I'm able to count in millimeters.
Sorry to cut you short. Were you?
Yeah, I was done.
Oh, okay, good. So in about maybe 30 seconds each, your last word on this. Oh my gosh, we didn't even get into festivities. Oh.
We need another session.
So I don't even know how to plug it in at this point. I'm like, Christmas trees and lights. A song or two. And then the thing for me is always like, I have to take all this down after. And I'm just lazy about it. But just your last words on interior design. I promise you, we will see how to fix it, to correct this error. But your last words on interior design, celebrating interior design this morning.
So there is value in hiring professionals. I keep saying that, and I will sing it until it's in our hearts and in our minds. There's value in hiring professionals. It's a luxury service, but it's a luxury service that pays. Yeah, that not just pays us because it does, but also translates to you having a better experience with the space that you're in and experiencing your home in a beautiful way, because our homes are where we form our memories. And if you remember a beautiful space, it's part of a core memory, right? So hire professionals. That's
all right. That's
line.
What she wants you to leave this show with.
Yes.
Your last word, Cecilia?
Yeah, just to do justice to the festivities, I would say when decorating your spaces for festivity, just look at your lighting. As we mentioned, make sure it's not too much. Look at your decor. Don't use a lot of, colors. You can even use neutral colors, Just go soft, go warm. So because it's a warm season, you want to feel close, yeah? But then what I want to say about interior design is that interior design is a profession that actually affects your life literally. When you're young, when you're old, when you cannot climb those stairs that you told the architect to give you an upper room, you remember interior design. So when you're thinking about your house, when you're thinking about a space to live in, be very specific about what you want and where you are in life and where you're headed. Yeah. So as a profession, we're saying that as an association, we're saying that we are going to do more of advocacy to let you know what is interior design and how to get what you are supposed to get. I am a politician. I ran for Westlands, so advocacy is my business. Huku naitwa mheshimiwa lakini sina pesa. Sasa mimi ni mheshimiwa wa interior design, mtanisamehea. Okay. So I will just be advocating for interior design, for people to know what interior design is and how it affects your life as an individual.
Okay.
Yes.
Yvonne, tufungie?
Yes. For me, I would say interior design is you. It's how you interpret the space. It's the inner you that's coming outside, Yeah, and I would say we as Unlock, we give you that. So come by Westlands.
All right. So trust me, the inner me is giving me tinsel, lots of tinsel over Christmas. Thank you very much for joining us on Your World this morning. We have had Mheshimiwa Vice President, Interior Designers Association of Kenya, Shiko Mushiri, Director, Shiko Interiors, and Yvonne Wamushi Mweru, Interior Designer, Unlock Africa Ventures. That's it for Your World. My name is Olive Burrows. Been sitting in for Winnie Lubende.
Unbeatable shows for the whole neighborhood to choose from.
I can have my happily ever after.
So stay connected to DSTV this holiday season to make the best entertainment yours. DSTV, it's your moment.
Develop a problem-solving mindset. Think critically and approach questions, challenges, and setbacks with a positive and proactive attitude. You'll gain a reputation as someone who wants to make an impact and get things done.
Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology announces the 20th graduation ceremony to be held on Friday, 1st December 2023 at its main campus starting 8 a.m. Follow us live on YouTube and Facebook page.
Get ready to dive into the pulse of a generation that's shaping the future.
On this new season of Speaking of Gen Z, we uncover stories and emotions behind relationships, friendship, family, and much more.
It's not about the miles between us, it's about the connections we share. And this is the Strings Attached edition.
Baby, come give me something, oh.
Can we talk about situationships?
Speaking of Gen Z podcast, the Strings Attached edition. Wednesdays from 10 a.m. on Nation FM and Nation.Africa.
Welcome to Speaking of Gen Z.
Reach your audience instantly and make a lasting impression with Nation Sema. Affordable SMS at 0.3 Kenya shillings. Own sender ID for 10,000 Kenya shillings plus 10,000 free SMS. To sign up, please call 0790 111 111 or email us on nationsema@ke.nationmedia.com.
Can we talk like civilized people?
If you don't believe me, there's nothing to discuss.
To start with, Bridget, leave that suitcase alone. Don't tell me the investigator you hired to find my answer in Estarter is named Rotundo. Yes, he's Alejandro Rotundo. He is the same person that day you hired. This check will pay for your silence.
Don't you want us to check what I've just told you with a DNA sample?
The only thing I want is for you to disappear.
Head over heels.
The Motindum liquid electronic device reaches every corner, giving your loved ones a peaceful sleep. Together, we can fight to end malaria. Motindum, Kenya's #1 choice.
NTV, turning on your world. The following program has been rated GE. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
Welcome to another episode of Business Redefined. Q3 numbers from the banking sector are flowing in, and we are privileged to have KCB Group Chief Executive Officer, that is Mr. Paul Russo. Paul, as always, tunashukuru.
Thank you, Julian.
Asante sana. Paul, one of the market watchers told me that all my interviews with KCB start on a low note. Let's begin on a high this time. Congratulations on the top line for Q3. Quite impressed by the turbocharge I saw there. And I don't think many have realized that you are at 90% of your full year 2022 earnings. If you just added, 13 billion, you would have blown it. What drives this turbocharge?
Thank you. Many times when people see the bad news, and it's always on profitability, they would not go through, quite the other numbers. So if you look at even the half-year results, the top line was actually growing very well. But the bad news of additional aggressive provisions and therefore the year-on-year reduction on performance did dampen the mood. But look, our top line growth has always been, Kenya is consistently one of those entities that you believe, even with the NPL discussions, and I'm sure we'll tackle that, we're starting to see the value of cleaning up the corporate book. And the retail team is obviously doing extremely well, but also the value on some of the high-risk decisions we've taken around the G2G, particularly on trade, starting to pay. But look as well, our subsidiaries, You know, quietly, work that we did in 2019 to clean up that are starting to pay. The run rate Tanzania has with a below 5% NPL potential is massive. The risk we took, the decision of acquisition of BPR in Rwanda, starting to show. And TMB, even before we've taken the actions that we want to take, demonstrating value for that. But one I'll single out is Uganda, because for a while it's troubled us.
Yes.
So we seem now to have got Uganda right and with a good momentum. But I'll still bet on Kenya. You know.
Never mind the headwinds.
Never mind the headwinds. I'll still bet on KCB Kenya.
Paul, still on the top line discussion, whereas we must commend you for that, your costs are escalating much faster, squeezing out your margins. If you look at your cost to income right now, it's a bit disconcerting.
If you strip out one-offs, it's gone up by 15%. So I'll agree with you, it's not acceptable, all right? But I think it's important first to strip off the one-offs. Remember, we've quietly, and many people don't notice, is we had a voluntary early leaver scheme that we've delivered that. What I really want to see is staff productivity checking up. Barring one-offs, it's a 15% increase. Remember, TMB was not consolidated, so you're comparing year on year. But I'm still not happy on that percentage. And there are a number of items that will need to come through. One is building a true shared service model. So we are now in that position as an institution operating in 7 countries and given our size, that we must run a true, capable shared services model. Number 2 is our investments in technology need to check in. We've spent quite an amount of money, particularly on systems, that I need to start seeing value out of that. So you're right, absolutely, that it's up. But I really want you to see the 15%, and we will bring that 15% down for sure. And 8 to 10%, I can take that, but our 15% is still on the higher side.
And as you celebrate subsidiaries, one of the dim spots there was NBK. Do you look back and see sometimes maybe this acquisition might not have been the best choice?
So I'm a very Julians, you know me, I'm very bold and I can say certain things because they're the right things to say. So I've said investors never approved of KCB acquisition of NBK. I'm also on record saying that investors gave us a benefit of doubt when we turned it around. Knowing and with the promise that we were going to do a lot more on efficiency. We'd started that, deploying T24, we'll go live before end of the year. It gives us opportunity, like I said, January, February, a KCB customer should be able to be served in an NBK branch, and an NBK customer should be served in a... That gives you opportunity to optimize. Because then you can remove overlaps. It's something everybody will ask you. You know, why are you running 2 branches in Wajir? Why are you running 2 branches in Mandera? But you need a technology capability if that's the direction you want to take. I think it's important, Julius, to clarify. When we took over NBK, we found that it was going to be extremely punitive to replace the core banking system at that point. So we chose to run down the contract for the core banking system. But when then these laws hit us, investors took away that benefit of doubt. And it's one of those reasons I believe our share is trading where it is today. What we've done with the group board, working with the NBK board, is we are taking a step back. And that's why I was confident when we were releasing the results, saying by the time we have another investor briefing, I'll have a position on NBK.
On NBK. All right.
But you see, look, think about it. Strip out the 3.8 billion
for the retirement,
and see KCB results from that angle. So I'm bold actually to say we've asked NBK between Q3 running to 31st December, they must strip out 1 billion of that loss. That's the target I've given them.
Which is quite ambitious.
And we are on it almost every single day.
Paul, we must salute you for the improvement in your asset quality from an NPL ratio standpoint. But that is largely a factor of your denominator. The quantum number is still growing, 187 billion shillings, Paul. The last time we sat here, this very place, you told me the downgrading conversation is behind us. You've downgraded 44 billion.
So I think, Julians, you know, the problem with you guys is, if I may say that, is you don't see that downgrade happened for the half year.
Okay.
Right? It's technically not new downgrade. What has happened is the impact of FX has equaled the 20 billion of recoveries. That's a sad story.
Yeah.
So we've made 20 billion recoveries, but then the provision additional NPL as a result of the depreciation of the currency was almost equal.
Yeah.
So on face value, you don't see the effort, right? And two things, that's why I'm very clear in my mind. KCB will not focus on NPL percentage as a measure. We are focusing, and we've had a group strategy meeting last Thursday and Friday on the quantum on the stock.
Yeah.
Right? Because it doesn't matter. You know, I don't need to be reminded that 187 is equal to number 3 bank in Tanzania. Julius, if you want, you know.
You can even think of it in terms of the Eurobond.
Somebody said to me, Paul, by the way, you can collect and then pay the Eurobond for us and we'll pay you. Now, there are jokes up to that point. Behind closed doors is hard work for some of us to be able to make that call. I'm proud of the work the team has been doing, you know, taking the quantum, managing the flows, migrations, and you know, being proactive in terms of that recoveries and collections. But you know, Julians, particularly in Kenya, you know, I'm on record. You win a court case in Malindi, somebody files an appeal in Kisii, right? It's not what I think a number of times people have said, oh, maybe you're unable to sell securities. No. There are people interested in a number of those names. Economy might be challenging, but the last 2 months when I look at maybe 5 or so top names, we're not short of people to buy. But the circus around court cases and what people will do to delay those actions. But I say you've got to run that treadmill. Maybe that's why we have the jobs we have.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we will reduce the stock of NPL. And that will be down to just the teams and the way we've set ourselves up.
Would, still on that issue of the quantum of the NPL, would 200 billion be a psychological mark for you?
No, we would not get there. Unless there's another COVID or some other disaster. I'll take a bet to say we will not get there.
I see. And is there a dedicated strategy towards your mortgage book? Because in the latest numbers, I think quite a bit of hits came from your mortgage book.
We do. And one of the things that we've done is, you know, just to make sure that there is closer management. In the past 2 or so years ago, KCB Kenya made a decision to break down the mortgage division and split that into retail and corporate. You know, we've reversed that. You know, it's only fools who can't change their minds. We've reversed that, and we'll regroup that team and a very experienced internal resource that was in the mortgage team. For a while, you know, Caroline ran our mortgage as number 2. Then she went to run the foundation. So we made that decision to bring that expertise back under Caroline Wanjeri.
So S&L is coming back?
That's a question even the board asked me. You bring SNL back, and I've just said it's probably step one towards that direction. You need a core team of experts. Yeah, and we are reviewing another strategy. Yes, sure.
Maybe just to nudge you a little bit on that. So what informed that backpedal? Maybe just some more color into it.
I think it is, you know, mortgage is, for lack of a better word, is a specialist product. And the value of running it under experts is something that we recognize. And I chose to make that call. I think and as well as if the direction on low-cost housing, you know, and those clients of ours that are involved or would want to go that direction, I think it's better managed by experts. And also just ensure that you don't get yourself into risky spaces. Because it's also a risk management action, right? There could be a lot of appetite because of the direction the country is going, but you need experts to moderate that risk, in my view. And Julians, I've always told you, when you are a CEO, you better work through subject matter experts. And we needed to pull that expertise together. And KCB is too big to just rely on any other person. So we understand the corporate team is extremely good, but are they competent on that side of things? Am I asking the corporate director to do a lot more than what they can, or the retail team to do a lot more than they can? But as well as you can go to project financing, but who then ensures that the value chain is optimized, right? So it's one thing to sponsor, to fund a significant project, but the buyers are going to be retail or individuals. Who is optimizing that whole chain? I think I'm okay to take lessons. We were more organized, and you can also build expertise in the network. So experts training across the branch network, but also across the group, so that we're in a better position.
Paul, the last time we sat here, unless I got you wrong, you gave me October 31st as the sunset date for recapitalizing KCB Kenya. Tier 2, 100 million USD. When I look at the numbers, it doesn't reflect, but that is until September anyway. How far are we with that?
A bit of a distance, to be honest. We were very optimistic, and I think that's one of those elements you keep holding me to account. Paul, you become too optimistic. We were running, you know, that process. We were almost very sure about closing that out, but I actually see that getting now to January. Three parties, you know, evaluating all that process. I just think the lessons that we would internally have done a lot faster to be able to close that out. So you're right. Maybe we were too bullish.
Okay. And the ticket size is still the same?
Because I think, yes, the ticket size is still the same. But I think, Julian, we also should not underestimate the risk appetite that investors want to take on Kenya and Kenya-related entities.
Yeah.
So probably it's one of those that we underestimated. So they are reviewing Kenya as they review your consideration for that tier 2 capital. You're bullish about KCB, but there's a holistic, bigger review that will be ongoing.
Okay.
And I guess that came into play. And once you meet one board circle for those entities, you have to wait for the next one.
Something stood out for me in your balance sheet, Paul. You're going countercurrent. Everybody seems to be cutting back on government exposure to government securities. KCB seems to be going cross-current.
I'm not sure that, you know, they are cutting, but I think for us, we needed to say from an ALCO point of view, where is the best place to put in that money, particularly coming out of the G2G initiative. So it's a collective, you know, ALCO decision. I think at the end of the day, you've got to optimize those decisions. I'm surprised that you now don't say that our effective tax rate came down. And that's what you guys used to beat us on, right? Just because of that investment in the infra bond. So we found that opportunity at the right pricing and went for it. We'll still continue to do that evaluation. I think, is it the long end or the short end? I think many people will prefer the short end at the moment.
Including KCB.
And we took that opportunity. And so you need to give us credit that we took that opportunity with the liquidity that we had.
$500 billion in guaranteed letters of credit for the G2G arrangement. Some would say you have outsized exposure on that side, 85% of the market.
So two things, and allow me just to revisit this G2G issue. Number one, Julian, this was a co-creation and conversations where most of us, I'll say at the start, there were 16 banks in that conversation, and I dare say so on TV, that we were staring at where oil marketers were struggling to get dollars. And all of us, banks and everyone else, were going to be impacted if we go to a point where there was outage. And maybe I might sound an alarmist, but signs were there. So this solution was to try and make sure that we've got a way to support the oil marketers. Now, before G2G, KCB ran 42% of the OTS in terms of support from a trade finance perspective, and it was growing. And we built a team around that, and that team has done extremely well. Now, through the process, 3 parties, you know, won to be those that are involved in the G2G arrangements. Those were our customers. Like I said on Wednesday, the feeling is, if you're human, is you used to have 10, now it's only 3, so you can have a feeling for the ones that are not there if you now apply your heart and mind to it. But look, the whole process is the same as what was on the OTS. It's you have fuel or you have money, right? So the whole collateral management process is exactly as it was under the OTS setup. The risk here is when you start buying dollars to settle the LCs. So far, we've been able to retire a number of LCs. We've been able to prepay a number, which shows that the process and the model does work. Now, what you saw as breaking news in the front of the pages is the cumulative, right? So no one has looked at what we paid and how those fall and scheduling. Every single decision is approved in the normal way by the board credit committee. And we've got our risk appetite in terms of that set. So I think people looked at the numbers rather than the mechanism of how it works. You know, the current G2G, from where we sit as a bank, you can flip it back to OTS, it will go ahead as the same. Obviously, you get backlash because you have more liquidity than everybody else. But Julian, it must count that I took the risk. So on this other side, you're beating me for for the risk. Now, then you start beating me for the liquidity on the back of that risk. I think for us, and the TRICOM, remember there's a TRICOM, EPRA, banks, oil marketers that meet weekly to review. As long as the TRICOM continues to work the way it's working and we are represented, we believe we've mitigated our risks.
And you feel the 91-day yield cushions you adequately on the FX side?
So far. I think we've got to start thinking about, and the way I view as a CEO, is what else for the country? Just what else? Yeah? And I can say here, I'm on record saying, you better have expensive fuel than not having fuel. That's not the sustainable, don't get me wrong. Right? It's not the sustainable conversation. Let me not wade into the politics side of it. But at that point in time, right? Because I don't think, Julians, that people have appreciated the impact of the shortage of foreign currency. You can have KES as an oil marketer. It's fine. But where are you going to buy dollars? We worked together with central bank for a period across the banking sector to prioritize oil sector. It became difficult. So I don't think G2G just happened for the sake of it, right? You've got sometimes even in strategy to stay away from strategy and go tact, which is a bandage and elastoplast. That probably informed that. The question everybody should ask is what's the long term, right? And I will word that without you asking me, is, you've got to get your exports up. Yeah? You've got to create a destination for diaspora, for meaningful investments, right? So agriculture and related value chain, manufacturing has to get back up. There are no easy choices, right? So you'd imagine that the G2G holds you, but you're doing all what you can on those two, particularly those two or three setups, because that's got to be it. Yeah? And I'm saying it boldly, that you've got to get partners onto the table to try and cross you a river, but you've got to build muscle that then takes you to the long haul after the river.
Paul Russell, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Julians.
Behold the Okavango Delta, a masterpiece of nature. A jewel nestled in the heart of Botswana.
Mimi kama mbunge wako.
To get NTV News jingle, dial *811*924#.
Skiza, Nan Nation.